Hello, everybody. We are here with episode 6 of Untapped. This is our first episode that we are live today in our spot. We have a very special guest, Jimmy House. There's so much amazing about this man right here. I'll probably let him explain who he is. We're a host today. We've got Levi Kelly, who is an Arizona Diamondback Major League baseball player. And also, I'm just going to call it out. I don't know if he really wants to, but also a future UFC fighter. And I'm here, Kyle Hannon, the world record holder in surviving the most chemotherapy. Also, the cancer patient with the largest biceps in the world. And man, I feel weird flexing next to Jimmy House, man. I got to hide these guys. So who is Jimmy House? What a great name, by the way.
Thank you guys first off for having me. It's an honor to be here in the first live podcast. What a great setup. It's like basically Joe Rogan already, eh? Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah, no, well, for one, maybe we talk about the story of how I got to know you guys and everything. I know you guys work with a couple of my closest friends, Logan and Matt, with the Recharge Center here in Peoria, Arizona. I saw Sean shouted you guys out on Joe Rogan. That's awesome. Yeah. Hell yeah. Slight flex.
We're still replaying that over and over.
Yeah. That's so cool. But yeah, Matt and Logan both speak very highly of you, Kyle, your wife, and then the business. Guys. Yeah, they're super good guys. And I know you saw my podcast on Mark Bell and everything, and I appreciate you watching that, and that kind of got us together. And then from there, we did. I was very lucky to have you and Levi in a couple classes at TNT. Seriously appreciated you guys handing me over some trust to stop in, and here we are.
Absolutely, man. To go down there, Levi and I were having so much fun going down there once a week and training under you. I mean, you have all these things that a person would just in life, that would be their goal, that they hit one thing, like being a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And you got your black belt at what age?
I got it when I was 25, but I started jiu-jitsu when I was 20, so I got it like shortly after my 5th year mark.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Black belt in jiu-jitsu, right there. And then to become an instructor, just an incredible instructor. You've done some work with the B Team New Wave Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, I stopped by and I trained with B Team, and then I was lucky enough to get an invite from Gordon Ryan and my friend Mike, Rakshan, and Jiu-Jitsu Giant to go train with them for a few days over there. Lucky enough to make some connections over there and stuff like that, and it inspired me enough actually to make a full-on move to Austin, Texas here in a few months to pursue jiu-jitsu and everything else that I do in life. It seems to be bigger and better in Texas. Yeah.
I spent a lot of time in Texas as well with
really?
Double A Team Amarillo. It's a little bit different down there, but I liked it a lot. So I think, Texas is
I do like
spot.
Texas. Yeah, it's similar to Arizona. I feel like maybe a little bit more green. And the buildings are like older, but from a more like historic point of view, like that type of feel. Not as city, or at least in Austin. Austin.
Things are cheaper too, like housing and stuff.
Much
like
cheaper,
that.
Yeah. We're looking for a house ourselves out there, and I wouldn't have thought that in any other state for sure.
Yeah. My buddy is moving there, and he's sending me houses. He's like, "How much do you think this costs?" I'm like, 800, and he's like, "Nope, 400."
Oh yeah,
like, damn.
It's insane. And then you look at California beach homes that are nice, but like nothing crazy, not huge or anything. They're in millions and millions of dollars. Yeah, it's insane.
I think that's why people from California move here. They sell a 2-bedroom for $2 million and get a 5-bedroom for $1 million.
Yeah, smart. Yeah. Smart.
But you can kind of do the same thing from here to Texas as well. I feel like.
I think we had starting in like the 1930s, 40s. Hollywood was the destination. I'm gonna move to Hollywood and chase my dreams. Right. I think Austin is our next Hollywood. Yeah, I think that's where all of the next move. Because I'm sorry, but California, if they don't ship up soon, I mean, goodbye Hollywood. Here's Austin, and I know that you've got some big things in the work possibly, and I think that you've kind of been talking a little bit about getting into pro wrestling, WWE, right? Is there any updates on that area?
Yeah, the majority of what I could talk about is I've been training. I started training under Coach Dom Vitale over at Phoenix Championship Wrestling in Mesa, Arizona. I started that shortly after I got my black belt, so I want to say my first session was like in March at some point. And I've been probably training on average, like the way my schedule worked with his, 1 or 2 times a month, just about. So realistically, hours wise, I'm still pretty new, but I've been in the process per se for a few months. I worked my way to get connected with certain people in WWE. Obviously, Goldberg's a really good friend of mine, and besides, wanting to continue to develop a relationship with him, he's definitely a big inspiration to want to put myself out there in front of people that can help me further achieve that goal. And along with pursuing that, again, as we talked about, Austin has just about everything that I'm doing here, just with much more potential for growth with all the different types of people that are out there.
100%.
The jiu-jitsu stuff's got to relay too. Like, my buddy he is like kind of on the same path, but with AEW.
Oh,
which
nice.
is
Yeah,
like,
you did tell me that. Yeah.
And it seemed like when I watch videos, it's almost like you're flowing. Like it's a flow roll-ish. The moves are a little bit different, but there is some stuff that translates.
Yeah, it's interesting, being a pro wrestler in training. I can only say so much, but what I will say is that in training, there's aspects that you don't acknowledge or don't respect enough that you see on TV, where sure they're moving around, and the athleticism part of it is extremely impressive in itself. But keep in mind, in jiu-jitsu, you're concerned about your safety, of course, not as much concerned about the other person's, at least from a competitive standpoint. This is genuinely a dance. And at the same time, you're watching your safety. You're also making sure you're keeping the other person safe. May or not be lifting them 6 feet in the air at the same time. And there's a psychology aspect to it as far as how to play through the storyline. And there's just so many aspects to it that your normal person watching on TV, including myself, wouldn't think to actually respect. But yeah, there's just so many aspects to it. So yeah, like the whole fake or choreographed thing that's obviously out there, but there's so many more aspects to it that make it just as, if not more, impressive than any other combat sport, honestly.
I saw Logan Paul blew out his knee in that with Roman Reigns and he was like, okay, my knee's blown out, but everybody's watching me. Like, I can't just stop the show for my knee. So to be able to okay, my knee is blown out and continue the show.
Right.
People don't think about that.
Yeah, that's super impressive because it's all live, right? There's no double take, and there's so many stories like that. For example, like Brock Lesnar at one of the WrestleManias versus Kurt Angle, he did what's called a shooting star press. He does a backflip, but going forward, but he missed and he landed basically on his face and neck, broke his neck, but finished the match.
Wow.
Kurt Angle, there was a match where Triple H had slammed him into the announcer's table, he got knocked out, and he says he couldn't remember a thing about the entire match, but then just autopilot still finished the match regardless. And this is millions of people watching and everything. So yeah, to have that mental capacity is something that most people don't talk about. Absolutely.
Yeah, and for you're super athletic to be as big as you are and be able to move like that. So I think from an injury standpoint, you're going to be able to do more things than most. Like Logan Paul is so athletic, and you see him jumping. So and it's like, shit, people aren't doing that in the WWE.
Yeah, not too much.
So for you to be that athletic and you kind of have the, you definitely have the look.
Thanks, man.
I think it'll be an easy transition
Thanks,
for
man.
you.
I hope so. I'm trying to prepare myself in every aspect possible. So where all the mobility work's coming into play, the strength work, obviously trying to maintain a certain physique. And I haven't worked on it as much as I should, but for a while there, I was consistently working on my flips and the different beginner parkour gymnastics stuff, just to have that aspect as well,
Absolutely. When you think about it, it's jiu-jitsu, and it's not like you're just doing kind of easy flowing gi jiu-jitsu. You're doing the ADCC, no gi mostly, right, type of more high risk type jiu-jitsu. WWE, maybe the most risky injury type of sport in the world. And then we haven't really talked about the powerlifting. I mean, those are three things right there. So somebody who's trying to get into that area where injury is, it's in all sports, baseball, whatever it is. What is some advice you have to somebody out there? Like, what should they be doing, or maybe some tips they could do to get in the area? Because obviously you may be the best in the world at avoiding injury right now. At any athlete in the world, if you think about, I mean, everybody should realize what this man is doing here, how he's avoiding injury. Take notes from this guy. What would you say for tips?
Well, for one, I think a lot of it starts with how young I started training. You start training at a certain age, especially before puberty, and you almost create a higher set point for yourself when you start actually getting the extra testosterone going. You start getting into manhood and everything. And I started lifting when I was 5. And I think that alone did set me up well to be able to endure a lot of, pounding or potential injury risk that I'm able to kind of shake off.
Lifting weights at 5?
Yeah, that's when I started learning. Yeah. Wow. So about 21 years experience so
and
far.
Squats and everything?
Yeah, I started my dad had bought a Sports Authority weight set and had a little almost aluminum feeling type barbell in there, and then some weights, did pressing and curls, some squats and stuff like that, and that grew into me just training upper body on Saturdays and lower body on Sundays, pretty much from age 6 up until age 14 when I started taking over my own training.
Amazing.
And I just haven't stopped since. Now, when it comes to the injury conversation, I think most people don't understand how much you can actually prepare yourself to avoid injury in the actual gym. Building a work capacity or a certain level of durability for yourself, how you train, so that your body doesn't need as much time to recover, as much outside variables to recover, and also you organize your movements in such a way that, yes, you're strengthening muscle, you might be making it bigger or stronger, but there's also ways to put certain stress on ligaments and tendons to where you're not obviously tearing them, but you're actually giving them the type of stimulus to strengthen them at the same time too. So, in short, full range of motion is going to be the best way to achieve a lot of that, as far as not limiting your body's ability to move in various ranges. Outside of that, now you get into specific movements that will specifically lengthen hip flexors or strengthen the vastus medialis of the quad, and all these different things that lead into performance, durability, and in essence recovery. The seminar that I just had recently, one of the questions for me was very similar, was basically, what's your recovery like given all the different things that you do? And obviously food and rest is going to be a mainstay in everybody's recovery routine. You might have some different saunas or chiropractic or massage therapy work that you do, but the biggest takeaway that I had for this person, anyone else, is that if you train to bulletproof or build durability in your body in the gym, you're more resilient to come back from injury faster, mitigate how bad an injury is, or just in essence not have to deal with it at all.
Right. I felt that I had surgery on my shoulder probably 18 weeks ago.
Okay.
And I felt like that. I bounced back way quicker. And
good.
even at the field, they were like, holy shit, you already have full range of motion and you're 4 weeks out.
Nice.
But I said, because I was so prepared going into this surgery, I felt like that was the reason.
Yeah.
It was at the point of the surgery, it's already too late. If I wasn't prepared to bounce back, then, I can't have surgery and then start, okay, now it's time to go. It's well, the 16 years prior to this, I've been getting ready, and now I have this surgery, and now I'm, it was a short amount of time where I was like, shit, I felt good to go.
Very true. Maybe we touch on that a little bit, because it's if somebody like him has been training to build resiliency, once you actually get injured, his body obviously has the muscle memory and has that reference tool to revert back to once he gets to training again and recovery. So therefore his recovery rate after surgery is much faster than your average person that maybe they injured their shoulder because they haven't ever trained before. So now, outside of just recovering from the surgery, you now have to build new muscle and new muscle memory to just get to the point to where having surgery again isn't a possibility. But that process of creating, new muscle or new muscle memory is going to take much longer than just calling on your body just to bring it back again, because it's already had it. So that's huge. I haven't had a surgical experience, thankfully, but my most recent aspect where I'm like, oh wow, there's actually proof to the pudding here, is I went out to California to do some collaboration work with one of my sponsors, Rare Breed Life, Pitbull Torres. He's a very well-known powerlifter. Yeah. And we're wrestling around a little bit, and we're having some fun. And literally the last round that we did on the feet, I did a stupid move trying to look cool in front of the camera. I tried to step over. He caught my ankle, and when he caught my ankle, his shoulder was in my knee, and he tried to pull me down, drive me forward with it. But my body was aerial, going this way as he's driving into my knee this way. And there was a very loud, distinct pop that happened on the inside of my knee. And that was scary in itself. And there was some swelling and obvious pain the next couple days after that. But by day 3, I was back doing my basic knees over toes movements again, able to walk and do squats to partial range of motion and do the sled and whatnot. And after a week, I had full range of motion back into the knee again. So that pop, which for some people may have been like a full on tear, for me, for whatever reason, was just like a couple of days of soreness, and I was able to get back into the gym again relatively soon. So I think to conclude on that thought, it's like, okay, all of the resiliency that I built in my tendons, ligaments, and joints from all the full range of motion, ATG type training, which maybe we'll touch on later, did help my knee recover much faster. And actually, Matt had a couple knee injuries recently, very similar, a pop on the inside of the knee. My friend Jacob outside, and they've been doing my programs and stuff like that. And not to take credit for the recovery, but with the blueprint, they did recover very fast with their knee injuries.
Right. Wow. I had a similar thing probably gosh, it was like 4 years ago, maybe, broad jumping.
Okay.
And I landed in like a deep squat, and this knee buckled out. Damn. But it was like same thing, like a week, and because at first I was like, oh shit, I think I just tore something.
Yeah.
Because of the pop, and then I was bouncing around like, oh, I don't know, it feels, it feels fine, a little bit of swelling, but a couple of days, and it's like, I'm good to go.
That's good. I think like to that. Not every pop signifies a tear or a dislocation or whatever. I think what I learned, because I had another pop like that a couple years ago before I started doing all the ATG stuff, but sometimes the pop can literally just be the air pop that you get on your toes or your knuckles, but because the knee doesn't like have that release very often, that pop in itself scares you, and then it creates some type of like nerve response to where everything in there gets super tight to not like have that happen again. And obviously, I'm not a doctor nor a medical expert on knees, but from my 2 experiences with the same injury in the same spot and them recovering on their own, the first time I got it, I did go to the doctor because I was for sure the pop was a tear. And then the doctor, when he first looked at it, based upon its function, did think that there was some type of meniscus tear going on in there. And then we came back and the x-rays showed absolutely nothing, and I was distraught on how that was even possible. This last time that happened more recently, since it was a similar injury and I got back to training even sooner, I trusted it was pretty much the same thing, and now my knee is stronger than it's ever been before. If anything, it just made me feel more confident in all the training that I was doing leading up to that.
Yeah. Do you think that there's some aspect where your body knows how to recover because it's been torn down so many times? Like lifting is essentially tearing your body down to build back stronger. So your body already knows like, okay, he's going to tear me down, and then I have to because he's not stopping. He got training tomorrow at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And we just lifted at 6 p.m., so I got to be ready to roll. So your body is like, your body's practicing constantly, like repairing.
Yeah, that's like a very good point, and I wouldn't say that you're off track at all because, again, not a medical expert, so I couldn't tell you the exact functions within the body that would lead to that
me
type
either.
of process,
This is just like
but
something I think about.
It does make sense when you just acknowledge the fact that the body is very adaptive, and any time that you give it a certain stimulus, whether that be having to recover from something or whatever, like it will adapt, and the next time that it happens, it will do it better and faster. And like from a legitimate injury standpoint, yeah, I could definitely see how the process would be faster just because it's so used to having to go through a recovery process from your normal training. Yeah. That does make a lot of sense. Absolutely.
Yeah.
With more and more, I guess, money being involved, and athletes are getting paid more and more in sports like WWE, jiu-jitsu, baseball, for all of these sports, it's becoming more and more of a big deal in terms of what it takes and what gives you the edge over another athlete. And so I see it's just a must now that you do certain things like the training aspect, like you're saying. You got to really pay attention to a very high level of strength and conditioning. I think a hot topic kind of right now in that whole industry is, should you lift heavy? Should you not lift too much heavy? Should you just not even touch those super heavy weights? And how does that fit into ATG as well? Right there?
So I'm going to relay it to my specific situation. For one, like, do you need to lift heavy? Should you lift heavy? When should you do it? For me specifically, obviously coming from a powerlifting background and then starting lifting so young, the first thing that kind of motivated me in the gym was just lifting heavy. So with that said, that logo on your chest wouldn't be there if I didn't lift as heavy as I do and post about it on Instagram and blah, blah, blah. With that said, there's the deadlift and squat and bench press that you build up towards so that you can, put yourself out there or compete as a power lifter or a strength athlete. But then to your other point, what allows me to continue to do that so that I don't hit some type of peak and then get injured or fall off, like honestly, like most athletes do. And in powerlifting, not that I'm a full-time powerlifter, but from my experience, I've seen so much turnover from like the top guys from when I started when I was 18 over at Die Hard down the hall to where I'm at now. Like the crop of guys now are completely different than the top crop of guys then. And I think a lot of it has to do with just in training, you're more focused on the numbers of these 3 specific lifts rather than putting the time and attention into the accessory movements that will allow you to pursue those numbers more long term. And I was guilty of it too, chasing numbers in the short term. Oh, I gotta get to 800 before I turn 24, and I gotta do this before I turn in, and all these different things. When I started to learn to just not care and like more so invest into my health and performance, but like the long game of like if I hit an 800 deadlift, I don't think I care anymore whether it's before I turn 26 or it's before I turn 36. But because of the fact that like I'm doing all these different mobility stuff and my body overall feels good, that's what allows you to do it longer. So again, if you're an athlete watching something like this, we want the best results now. So you might be more inclined to do more heavy lifts like in the short term. What we don't understand, and this might be something where you have to take it from somebody like myself that has 21 years of experience. Like if you lift for those short-term results, either directly in the gym or carrying over into the mat, and only lift for those 2 goals, the turnover will be much faster. As soon as I started changing my lifting to like, okay, I want to be able to do this for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, you still get all the same results, honestly. It's more so a mental barrier than it is an actual literal barrier. You still get all the same strength results. You'll still put on muscle, but the best part about it is you'll be able to move and you'll be able to do this by the time you have kids and so on and so forth. So that's my biggest takeaway to that question is like, you know, we all want the heavy lifts now. We want to have the lifts carry over to our performance on the mat or what have you. But like you have to put time into the other movements that are going to be strengthening your hips, rotator cuff, neck, like back, all these different things, because those are the muscles that maybe aren't shown on like a flexing picture, but those are like the muscles that keep everything functioning.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things a note I made was, do you think strength has to sacrifice for mobility or vice versa? Because that's like guys say, oh, I don't want to gain muscle because I don't want to lose range of motion, or vice versa. I don't want to get super flexible because then I'm going to lose strength. So do you think or do you think it maybe even benefits?
Yeah, so that's a great point. I think so. I've done some self-reflection recently, and I try to catch myself in the areas where like I make an excuse like that. And I think to myself, is that like a legitimate science-based or experience-based excuse? Or is it a mental barrier that I'm kind of like putting up for myself to prevent me from getting to wherever I need to be? Like I want to be really flexible. I want to be able to do the full middle splits and all these different things. But I also still want to have a deadlift over 700 pounds. And if myself, I have more time to train than most people. But if you're somebody that maybe has an hour or 2 a day to dedicate towards training, you also might be in the mindset of, oh, well, I only have X amount of times to train per day, per week. So with that said, like if I use 30 minutes of it to do flexibility or mobility, or an hour of it, that's an hour that I'm not doing X, Y, and Z in the strength field or whatever. So that's where the ATG movements became so relative to me, simply just because you are doing your mobility, you are literally stretching, but you're putting load on your body in these various ranges of motion. So there's no way you can't get stronger as long as you progressively overload the given movement. So now to your question, I'm more mobile than I've ever been, more pain-free than I've ever been, pound for pound stronger than I've ever been, and I like to think that my physique is better than it's ever looked before at the same time too. So letting go of that mental barrier, but then also putting in a system that lets you almost kill 2 or 3 birds with one stone was very beneficial, if not anything else, from just the maximizing your time argument. If you have 2 hours a day to train, 1 for lifting, 1 for jiu-jitsu, you want that lifting session to have the physique benefits, building muscle, the strength benefits of being able to lift weight, and then also the mobility benefits. So like a lot of the ATG movements can accomplish all of those at the same time. And the ATG movements is more so a concept than it is like, oh, these exercises are ATG. or full range of motion. ATG is just literally a concept that says whatever given movement that you're doing, how can you tweak it slightly to get full range of motion of the given muscle or joint that you're focusing on, you know? And then the cool part about that is you can start to get really creative with it. You know, Knees Over Toes guy made a lot of these movements very well known and famous. He says himself he didn't create any of them, he just shed light on them. And then myself, I take some of the same things I see him do and I get a little bit more jiu-jitsu specific. Okay, how can I take this movement, or how can I create a movement that mimics the position that you're in a Kimura, or how can I take, you know, like I posted that pigeon thing yesterday, the pigeon ATG pigeon movement.
Ooh,
that's like huge
out.
for like guard and triangles and stuff like that. So, you know, there's no limitations to it. So with that said, I think it's a very solid type of program to do if you're the type of person that wants to accomplish all these different things, but is under a set time limit to do so day to day.
Right. I think you touched on too is like you basically program your whole thing yourself, right?
So I do a lot of I'm under my coach Dawson. And he's the one that even introduced a lot of this ATG like movements. Before I got with Dawson 2 years ago, I was literally like the powerlifter that only came in to do my heavy squats or heavy deadlifts. And because I spent 2.5 hours doing the heavy squats or heavy deadlifts, I really did not care to do anything else after that.
Right.
In result, I couldn't get through a leg day without cramping at the end. If I wanted to lift and then do jiu-jitsu, it'd be physically impossible because I'd be cramping because my muscles were so tight. So I started working with Dawson, and then he started shedding light on some of these ATG movements. And at first, like I was a little bit skeptical with it. Not that I didn't believe that it would work, but I was in that mindset of if I do this too much, then I'm not like doing the stuff that's going to help build my deadlift and all these different things. It took a few really, really bad SI injuries, so bad to where like it was crippling, to where literally for a couple of days the pain was radiating down my leg. I couldn't actually put weight on it. So I remember injuring it, driving home, getting out of my truck, and actually having to crawl into my house and then sleep on the tile floor downstairs because of how bad it got. Then I was like, screw this. I'm just going to drop all the weight for ADCC trials. I'm going to take these ATG movements more seriously. I almost don't even care how much I deadlift anymore if it means I'm going to be forced to not walk for days on end. And I was only 24, 25 at the time. Like, I should not be experiencing that. Now, a lot of what I've evolved to now is I'm under Dawson's programming, but he does give me a lot of flexibility in the different things that I try. You know, there's things that I've tried that he hasn't dove into yet just because he's a competitive powerlifter. Right. I'm really big into rings now. I still do all the ATG movements. I try to take the ATG movements and put a jiu-jitsu twist on them. And then obviously still pursue like the powerlifting side of things and whatnot. And even more recently with the pro wrestling, I've been a little bit more contingent on how my physique looks, because obviously that's like your main selling point if you're going to be a pro wrestler for the most part.
To look the part.
Well, I got to make up for like 5 inches of height. So, you know, I can't just walk around like Levi over here.
One characteristic that is so important to me, and I struggle with it, is humbleness. And I think that when you really reach a high level of something, when you become an expert, I see it in the medical field all the time, being around doctors that are specialists in that field, where they're at that top level, but then they just kind of plateau out. And I think that it's really a good example of how important it is to stay humble and you still have coaches, you still have people that you're getting input in, you know, to get better. Because if a person is a specialist, you become a top specialist in 4 or 5 areas that most people don't even get to one of those areas. So how do you go about navigating to find those kind of people? Are you just constantly just kind of reaching out, trying to make connections with people, sort of thing?
I'll be honest, it's very little of reaching out to people, because honestly, up until Dawson, like my dad took me a long way. Like he showed me the ropes and everything. But once he stopped lifting, I took over myself. And I did that for literally 10 years until Dawson had offered to coach me. And it was the first time that I've had actually ever given anyone the reins to my training from a statistical, written down, like completely here you go standpoint. And I think that, and you have your literal like, oh, this was my flag football coach when I was 6, and like coaches that you just kind of like adopt naturally. But as far as like I am asking you, or I'm allowing you to have full control over me, and I'm a full-grown adult that has the ability to say whether I want to or not. That was the first experience with that. I have Dawson as the lifting coach, and then Coach Scott as the jiu-jitsu coach at TNT, and then now blessed to have a girlfriend that knows way more about nutrition than I do. Actually, she's a holistic nutritionist, so she helps me on the nutrition side of things. Fire. That's where my relationship actually with food has been better than ever. And so once I took the step, we're like, all right, Dawson, you're like, you can, okay. I'm going to see this as a learning opportunity. At the time, I didn't know like what type of learning opportunity it was going to be. I just trusted it that it was going to be one. Taking that first step made it much easier to accept more coaches in my life. So to answer your initial question, I think that a couple years ago, I was probably more closed off to the idea than what you might think. And that's a huge part of my growth. Wow. Is like seeing said person be like, you are better and know more than me in this area. And if they offer to help, if they're willing to help, like being more than okay just to give them the reins to help you in that regard. I talked about it on a recent podcast too, is if you're an athlete or if you're a person that's striving for a better life in general, make it a goal to get your ass kicked at least once a day. Mm-hmm. And in jiu-jitsu, that could be literally. Yeah. In the gym, that could be also kind of literally, but you're doing it to yourself. But in certain things, that could be like a mental, like acknowledging that you're not as smart as you think you are, acknowledging that you're not as cool as acknowledging that you're not as good as with money as you think you are, like anything, and like getting over those like points of humility to accept that you're not as tough or as cool or as smart as you think you are, to be able to come out better in the long run because of it. And that's such a hard thing to do. And I'm not going to sit here and say I'm perfect at it either. But whenever I feel like I'm trying to avoid something, like let's say it's training with some of my friends outside of TNT that are high level black belts and stuff, like Austin Baker or Adrian Nez and those guys, like if I'm going to a session or I'm thinking about it and I'm like, I don't know, I'd rather just, that. Then I'm like, oh, that's that thing. You're trying to avoid getting your ass kicked. Like you need to go, because like you go and then you get your ass kicked or you don't, but you feel way better because of it. And I think that's a huge reason why maybe I've progressed faster than most people, because I've been able to try to recognize those points, even from like a lifting perspective. Like I'm Jimmy, house strong guy. I'm supposed to know all these different things about lifting, but then I have to sit here and try to admit that this person, Dawson, is better than me at lifting, or this person, Ben Patrick, knows way more than me. And like now it's like I'm talking and telling it on a live podcast, but in the past I'd be like trying to hide away from those those scenarios, like stay in my safe zone essentially.
It's hard. So it's like for me that it's the same thing. Is I'm this premier athlete, whatever. I know I got it. Trust me, I got it. But being able to, but I think the biggest thing is you have to respect the person. Like you probably respect that coach a lot. Right. It's like, hey, this guy's living it. He's in it. Like for me, coming to a jiu-jitsu class, and if I'm going to learn from you and you haven't rolled in 4 years, I'm going to be like, what the hell, man? This guy hasn't rolled in 4 years. But like from a bodybuilding perspective, WWE, I was telling Kyle, like your body's business card almost, where it's like, okay, you're lifting. Like you don't look like this if you're not lifting. So you're living it. So it makes it easier for an athlete to be like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about because he's living it, 24/7.
Right. That's such a good point, because with that said, you want to look for mentorship that can help you, and you want to find those opportunities to get your ass kicked, but not ignorantly, not blindly. Like if somebody just says, I'm a lifting coach or I'm a jiu-jitsu coach, like that alone shouldn't be the green light to take somebody in, right? Like you should definitely either be able to tell that for yourself or go to people that can help you make that decision, because not every jiu-jitsu coach is the same, not every lifting coach is the same. Baseball, pro wrestling, I was so lucky to find the people that I'm working with at Phoenix Championship Wrestling. Coach Dom, like he took me in from day one, and I'm coming in here saying, hey, my goal is to make it into WWE, and I've never wrestled before. Please don't like look at me like a poser. And like they just took me in, and I'm so I can't believe it, and I'm so humbled by the fact that they did. And it's awesome to be a part of their family, but like people like that, to where and from a coaching perspective, don't just go with the person that is good at the literal sport that you're doing, but maybe pick the guy that actually is the person that you would like to model yourself after in real life too. That might be good, so that like bang for your buck, you can maximize like what you're actually gaining from said person.
I think too, as a coach, if you're you're going to be a lot more willing to give your time and energy to somebody that you know's also giving their time and energy to whatever you're trying to teach them. Where it's like, I was also talking to Kyle about this, is like a lot of times when guys leave the gym or they leave the baseball field or whatever sport they're in, that's the last they think of it. As soon as they walk out the door, it's okay, I'm going to go play Fortnite, Call of Duty, whatever. For me, it's like almost an unhealthy obsession. Like at night, I'm falling asleep like thinking about sequences or thinking about this, that, and the other lifts. I can just like a creative mindset where I'm constantly, okay, maybe I can do this a little bit better. But I think that's a lot of guys are missing out. They leave here and it's like, well, I got my 2 hours in today. That's it. I'm good.
Right.
And I think you see that show up in like competitions and stuff like that.
Yes.
The guys that are winning are the ones that are eat, sleeping, and breathing it.
Yes. So to touch on that, like, are you labeling yourself as a competitive athlete with high competitive endeavors? Or are you okay, which is completely okay,
right, yeah,
labeling yourself as, you know, like I'm a hobbyist. I'm doing this for fun. I have kids and work and stuff like that to worry about outside of here. Like, whichever you are, own it, because it's totally okay to be both. But also at the same time, like, make sure, for lack of a better term, don't be a poser saying that you want to be this competitive athlete achieving all these things, but you're putting in a hobbyist effort.
Exactly.
That's like the difference.
Yeah.
So like to his point, like, yeah, you think about it when you leave. Like, don't tell my parents or my girlfriend, but I record my rolling session, and then on the way home, driving 30 minutes, I'm driving on the freeway and watching my rolls at the same time. Not saying that that's what it takes to be good at jiu-jitsu, but like just, I guess, the little things like that where you get the extra mental reps in,
it's like an obsession.
Yeah, and you know, obsession can be very positive or also very negative. You have to be aware to have control over that boundary. But to your point, you're at where you're at because you were obsessed over your various goals, and you continue to obsess over your next set of goals. I like to think the same for me, and even for you, Kyle. Like, if you think about how obsessive you are over proving everybody that you can be the person that you are despite everything that you deal with, that's an obsession, and that in itself should be a sport, you know?
Exactly.
And so with that said, it's like, take a couple people like this and model yourself after not what they're showing on social media or not what they're doing in the gym with tons of other people around, but what are they doing when literally nobody else is looking? Like, that to me would be the determinant on whether or not that person is really, really wanting to be successful.
Right. I had a conversation with the Diamondbacks about when I had the surgery. I posted a picture of me mountain biking like 10 days after surgery, and they got pissed. Really? They were like, "What the hell are you doing?" And we had to sit in a room and have this big old, like, almost like I was getting called to the principal's office. Like, "What the hell are you doing? This doesn't match up with you trying to get at the big leagues, X, Y, and Z." And I had to tell them, like, listen, when I leave here, most of these guys, they go do whatever. They're in Old Town. They're chasing girls.
Yeah.
For me, this is 24/7. Like, I'm obsessed with the working out stuff. It's not show. Like, just when I'm here, when I work hard, it's not just to show you guys I work hard. This is a lifestyle for me. It's bigger than getting to the big leagues. It's trying to, like, whether I get to the big leagues or not, doesn't matter. It's like, did I get everything out of what I have? And if I did and I make it and make $200 million, great. But if I don't make it, I did everything I can do, you know? And I can look myself in the mirror and be like, well, you know, I did everything. Did I make mistakes? Yeah, but I did what I thought was right at the time, and I'm just learning, you know?
Yeah. And that's morally and consciously like a good feeling to have. Like,
right.
At the time, I did my best for sure, and that's always going to improve.
Right. My mindset too is like, you want me to just sit on the couch for 3 weeks and let this like, my legs aren't broke. I think I heard this. Connor was saying like, when he snapped his leg, well, my upper body, I can still do this, and that was my mindset. Yeah, I can't throw right now, but what can I do? Like, I can go bike. It's not going to be mountain biking, maybe a little bit extreme, but I'm, you know,
totally.
that's just me.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Definitely, man. So I kind of, what can you tell us a little more about Housestrung? I'm starting to see this apparel in random places, and
thank you.
You know, anybody check out Housestrung, highly recommend it. This is like my go-to clothing and apparel right now. Super awesome rash guards, workout gear, and everything. How did that come into fruition?
Yeah, so when I started powerlifting, again, Die Hard Gym down the hall, I was training with the person that essentially introduced me to powerlifting. He had his own team, and I actually myself did a lot of work to help him kind of grow brand awareness, and I even did some of the social media stuff for that. And with that, I brought a lot of my friends and got them into powerlifting and everything. Matt, my best friend Irving, and a couple other people, Amir and stuff like that. And so over time, some disagreements that have since been mended had encouraged me to do my own thing, in short. And in a lot of ways, that given person inspired me to do. In fact, without that person being a part of my life, that may or may not have come up, at least in the way it did. So I'm very grateful for that person. Now, with that said, we branched off and I was like, okay, well, we want to keep lifting together as friends and we want to call it something. And I've always thought it'd be cool to like get a name or a brand to represent my name or something like that. So like literally the term How Strong took all of like maybe 60 seconds to think of in my head. And to be honest, it was almost piggybacked off of some of the things I saw people in powerlifting doing at the time. Like one of my biggest powerlifting inspirations, his name was Jesse Norris. He did the hashtag like Jesse Strong, and I was catching on. And I was like, oh, I'm just gonna do How Strong, like super creative, yeah. But it ended up standing the test of time through the powerlifting and then switching into jiu-jitsu and then dabbling into bodybuilding and all these different things that I've been able to do. Now it's just kind of become a brand that represents me and the different things I stand for and the friends that have literally rode with me through everything in my life. Matt and Irving specifically have been my best friends since I was 6. And my other friend who co-owns a business with me, Jake, he's been with us since high school. And the main goal of How Strong is to continue to highlight the things that I do, the different things that I pursue, but at the same time, create a brand or business so successful that I'm able to create careers and lives for those specifically like my group of friends, which is why I gave them ownership of the business to benefit based upon the hard work that I put into my life.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
That's crazy.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely
that's awesome.
amazing.
I appreciate it.
I remember I just started to get to know you a little bit, and I'm such a fan of the Mark Bell Powercast. It's anybody that hasn't watched that, it's one of the
great people.
Oh, just amazing people. One of the probably my go-to podcasts that I listen to every week, and one of the best podcasts out there. I think they're approaching 1,000 podcasts now. They've been super successful. They've done movies. Mark Bell's brother Chris, he did a movie called Leaf of Faith. I think it's on Netflix still, and that changed. I mean, those guys have impacted my life so much, changed my life to get on Kratom, which helped me get off a lot of other medication that I use for chemotherapy and things. So it was like the amazing time. Like, oh my gosh, you're going to be on this Mark Bell's Powercast and everything. And how did you come about to get on, and what was that experience? Maybe you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a good one. And just forewarning for any profanity that ensues after this. But so love it. I've experienced quite a handful of instances of manifestation in my life, and not only until just recently did I really buy into the thought and or power of manifestation as a whole. But there are certain things where like just talking about certain things or saying I want to do certain things in my life, backed up with, of course, all the work that I was putting in. If in this particular case, we were in California with my friends, and if I'm going to set place with Irving and my friend Amir, and I'm like, dude, that's really cool. Mark Bell, like we've been watching him since we were 18, 19, and wouldn't it be so cool just to go lift at his gym one day? They're like, oh yeah, that'd be so sick, man. I love his podcast, blah, blah. What if you got on his podcast? Fast forward like 6-7 hours later, that same night, we're driving to the gym, Barbell Brigade, and I get a Instagram message request, but like the notification on my phone pops up, and it says Mark Smelly Bell wants to send you a message. I swear to God, on my life, this is what happened.
Dream.
Yes, and I double took. I was like, no, this has to be like a fake account, or like this can't be him. I'm like, but no, that's like his username. And I open it up, and it's dead ass him. And I'm riding in the back seat, and Irving and Amir are driving in the front. And I can be like a given hothead or be very high energy at times, especially with my friends. So my first response, I was like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? And then they're like, what happened? They thought they did something wrong. And and I'm like, no, dude, look at this. Check this out. And I show them the screen, and then they look, and then they're like, oh my God, and we're just all screaming. And I remember we parked, I get out of the car, I'm just like beating my chest and just like feeling like this insane sense of power, I guess you could say. He just told me congratulations on my black belt, and then I told him it'd be awesome to meet him, and then he invited me out that April. Spent about 4 days there hanging out with the team and everything, and doing the podcast and making some YouTube videos, and hanging out with them off camera. And, Mark Bell is a great guy. And Sema is a great guy. Andrew, I met Barefoot Sprinter. They had Andre Milinichev, who is like one of the best, if not the best squatters in history of powerlifting there at the time. I hooked up with my friend Matt Ogus that lives 30 minutes away. It was a hell of a trip. Wow. But it started with me literally, and I don't believe in coincidence, and I don't really believe in luck anymore. It's genuinely like what you choose to create based upon your words of manifestation, backed up with countless hours of work, and then something like that happens, and then that was another reason. And then you go into like Goldberg, and then you go into like how I got involved with Barbell Brigade and stuff like that. These are all things where like I remember the specific point where I said, what if, or I will meet said person and do said thing with said person. And whether it was 3 or 4 years later, or that same night, or the next day, they seem to all come to fruition at some point, which is why I'm such a big believer in my ability to take this and now use it to benefit myself long term, but also benefit those that surround me and support me without question, unconditionally. My parents, my best friends, my girlfriend, everybody around me. Like this is what I'm choosing to do with my gift, and whether it sounds ignorant on screen or not, that's what I'm owning to do. And guys like you guys, it just makes me appreciate you guys supporting me, even though we haven't known each other for that long. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate that a lot.
You kind of tapped into something I've been thinking about a lot is family. Would you say we have our blood family and we don't want to ever turn our back, but we also have the power to kind of choose our own family. Mm-hmm. Those are people who are with us, so they're tapped into what we're doing. They're supporting us instead of just kind of envy or something like that. Is that kind of how you operate the house strong?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was only child growing up. I do have a half sister that I'm close with, but we didn't grow up together. And so Matt grew up across the street from me, and he still lives there to this day.
Great guy.
Yeah,
Matt
great guy. Irving lives literally around the corner. Takes about 60 seconds to walk to his house. Whoa. And from age 6, we went to the same elementary school together. We were doing like this after-school basketball program. And all of our moms were sitting there, and then my mom, being like a hyper Asian Filipino lady, starts talking to all the moms. Oh. And sooner or later they find out they all live in the same neighborhood. So then the next sensible option was to get us all together and start hanging out and stuff. And Hungry Howie's was the spot back in the day. Like, yeah, the crust was amazing. And I remember just that building into now fast forward 21 years later to where we're at now. It's like, without literally being born from the same parents, like there's situations where I think a blood brother might not be as close as what I am with Matt and Irving and Jake and everything. So for sure.
Yeah, it shows those guys have to be really good dudes. With all the success you've had, it's easy for, especially at a younger age, to be like jealous of everything you're building and like, oh, this guy's got X, Y, and Z and I don't have it. They've probably seen the work that you've put in to get the things that you have, so that makes it a lot easier not to be jealous. But is that something you dealt with, like, okay, now I'm on this trajectory and maybe some of my friends are not on that same trajectory because of X, Y, and Z, and kind of being jealous of your success?
Mm-hmm. So to that point, I'll highlight, with Matt and Irving and Jake and my friend Amir and a couple other select group of friends, my friend Fred that came in later on, I've always been who I am, and I've continued to try to be better at who I am over the years. So it's only been more as far as like accomplishments and bigger goals and all these things. And never have I ever gotten any type of jealousy or resentment or anything like that from them. And I, to your point, realize how rare that actually is, which is why I believe that amongst my various life purposes, that is amongst the top 2 or 3 that I need to fulfill before I die, is to say thank you in the biggest way possible by giving back in the biggest capacity I can to these specific people. My parents are obviously within that group, my girlfriend and those guys. So now going to that conversation, one of the points of growth that I hit when I wanted to really just own this thing, like, this is me, this is my brand. I'm going to highlight the fact that I have goals and talents in certain fields, and I'm not going to care what anybody else thinks. I was about, I don't know, maybe 22 or something like that. I want to say it was about 22. And I remember sending a text out to those three, Irving, Matt, and Jake. I was like, hey guys, like I'm ready to take this How Strong thing to the next level. Like it's gonna take a lot of sacrifice on my end, and like I want you guys there with me every single step of the way. This is what I foresee for our future. Like, are you guys with me or not? Yes. And then fast forward like 4 years later, here I am about to move to Austin. I made all these connections. I'm talking about how we're doing all these things on your podcast, and it's because they literally believed in me from day one. Now, with that said, those specific people, this is also why I'm so inclined to want to pay them back or give back to them, is because they associate with me because of who I am. There is obvious backlash that has happened and will happen because they choose to associate with me. Now, I don't try to make myself out to be some shitty person to the world, but at the same time, to your point, there's just going to be people that, are jealous or haters or want to say that I'm a liar, like I'm on steroids or I'm lying about it, and all these different things, or I don't do this a certain way, or I'm full of myself, and all these different things that might come up, or just the simple fact of like having people that are close to them be like, what are you doing spending all this time working on the How Strong stuff? Like, is Jimmy really going to be able to do that for you? Like, you got to start thinking about this, and that. And I can't tell you how bad that broke my heart. And since then, fast forward a year later, those same people are changing gears. Like, oh, that's really cool how Jimmy's doing this, and you guys are all doing, yeah. And it's like, we've been the same people this whole time, but you didn't believe in us from the start, but these people did. And of course, you got to prove yourself, and I understand that. But it just, again, makes me value these guys more, because now when I'm taking this brand and trying to bring it to the next level, I have to acknowledge the fact that these people that I see all the time or on social media that are cool or message me from time to time, some of that might just change. And I could tell you some people that I would consider like close gym friends back in 2016, 2017, like don't even bat an eye towards me now if I walk past them. And I can't physically tell you anything changed other than like me like becoming more pronounced on social media or doing things on a bigger scale and all these different things. And I just came to learn that, for one, as part of the process is inevitable. Like with what I want to do with my life, there's gonna be people that hate you, that talk shit. Some of my biggest idols between Goldberg and CT Fletcher, they have thousands of people talk shit about who they are on a daily basis, and that they don't bat an eye. So I think about like, you could be some of the most amazing people, and you still will have, as long as you're big, thousands of people talking crap about what you're doing or who you are or how bad you are at this, and it's like, it's unavoidable. So that was a big pill to swallow, but I'm much more content with acknowledging that now, and that helped me a lot to be able to be like, why am I neglecting growing the business if I know it's going to directly help myself and my friends, because I'm in fear of like, oh, if I post too much or if I do too much of this or whatever, then said person that I can't even physically see right now is going to think less of me. Like at the end of the day, like I don't care anymore. At the time, I had to tell myself that you don't care. Because realistically, if those people aren't supporting you in your specific journey, sounds harsh, but to me, they're good as dead, because they're no sense of relevance to me at all. Right. I rather put 100% focus into the people that are with me right now, or the people that will support me, but they haven't seen me yet. They just haven't been exposed to me yet. So those are the people that I'm focused on, the people with me now, and the people that are going to believe in me in the future. Like those are the people I want to impress, per se.
Yeah, that's good. There was a quote. Somebody said like, "Look at all the great things Jesus did," and people still don't think they still trash him and whatever. And I had a baseball coach say, a third of people are going to like you, a third of the people are going to hate you, and a third of people don't care about you. Right. So if a third of you like me, I'm doing good.
Yeah, exactly. And that third can either be 3 people, or it could be 300 people, or 3 million people. You know what I mean? The bigger you get, that third is going to grow, and on all thirds are going to grow in order to maintain that fraction. But that's a very good point. I want to say that's pretty, honestly, if you were to do the math, it's probably pretty realistic. You know?
I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and I'll also touch on a point too, like, from a grand scheme of things of like internet trolls and like hate on the internet and stuff like that, you get all these compliments and like, you're like, oh, thank you, that's really nice. And like, you absorb it and that's nice. But it's like that 1 or 2 trolls that leave a comment and you're like, motherfucker. And it's like, am I really going to give more attention to the guy that was talking shit than I am to the hundreds of people that were saying all these great things? You know, like that's backwards to me. That's something I need to be better at. But like those are the type of things to where anyone in this like field wanting to grow themselves, those are the type of things that you should be ready for, because I've seen other people when they first get into it and they first start trying to grow themselves, athletes, social media influencers, jiu-jitsu practitioners, like you start putting yourself out there more, and then that first person that has something against what you're doing, you just go to hell's end to try to prove yourself right? And like literally wasting your energy, wasting your time, wasting your breath, and like you don't gain anything out of it. You're not going to change their opinion. It's like politics.
Yeah.
And you see people go on hours and hours and hours trying to change or tell the other person why their political view is stupid. It's like, why are you wasting so much time on that? You're not going to change each other's opinion. It goes the same with like arguing with people that have differences online. Going on a tangent, but those are some of the things that I continuously try to get better at when it comes to like how I portray myself and how do I deal with jealousy or hate and everything. Again, I'm very grateful for my group of friends and you guys specifically for not knowing me for too long, but giving me an opportunity to be on the podcast, but also believing in what I do. I like to think that we relate in a lot of ways. We pursue 100%. Different goals, some similar, different goals, but like as long as the drive and the work ethic is on the same playing field, like I could relate to somebody that competitively reads books,
right?
You know. And that's like what I really appreciate about you guys is your drive to be better and impact those around you in a positive way.
Right. I think for me, like meeting you was like, okay, this guy takes himself serious. Like you can just see it. And for me, when I see somebody like that, it's like, okay, yeah, we might not be best friends, but I can sit down and talk and we'll get along, because it's like this dude's doing essentially the same thing I'm doing, but maybe just in a different avenue.
Yeah, right.
So
exactly.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's no difference. Like whatever your thing is, there's no difference at the end of the day. I don't think there's a hierarchy of things that are better than others. Again, if it's reading books or folding towels or whatever. And I forget. A lot of people say this now, but there's somebody that said it like, if you're a McDonald's cashier, I don't care. I support that, but just be the best damn McDonald's cashier that you can be. That type of thing. You know? Yeah.
That's a good word, man. Thank you for saying such kind words. I think you made me reflect very deeply on a lot of things here. I can't wait to listen to this again. And you're such a good communicator and everything. I think you tapped into something so important too. When you have, I just am thinking about maybe even myself when I was kind of isolated in treatment for multiple years, and I was I didn't want to reach out to people maybe for the fear of sickness, but it was also maybe because I didn't want to look bad, for whatever reason. And I think that happens a lot. We don't want to step into a jiu-jitsu gym because we don't want to, end up getting subbed and look bad. We don't want to step into this place. And I think in our culture, in our community, I run across a lot of people now that are struggling with anxiety and the depression. And of course, everybody talks about the screens and everything, but it's making it more and more difficult to step into those places. And I think you tapped into a really good reminder and encouragement to me is that there's always going to be someone like-minded. And if you can just find that 1, 2, 3, and that one, that 1/3 scenario you came up with that's so powerful, is you find those couple of people, and if they're for you, they're with you, then you're always going to come across that opposition. And that's what people don't, I find myself in this sometimes too. There's always going to be a member or two of the community. Man, that guy got into my head today. I'm not feeling good. And it's not getting out of there. And I just hate this. Is it even worth it going through these risks or whatever? And so I try to, when you were saying that, I was like, wow, when that happens, I'm going to try to, and it's always hard. You say, I got a plan to do this, but to try to think about, hey, maybe I'm not going to get rid of this little thing bugging me for this moment, but it's going to pass. And then as soon as I can, I'm going to focus on love. And I found what really gets me out of that is just what you're so good at doing, is giving encouragement and kindness to people.
Thank you.
As soon as I give encouragement and I reach out and I say, hey, I appreciate it, but you give some love, it tends to come back, and then it just kind of swallows up that other negativity that, man, those things can be so frustrating. I'm a guy, I don't have the answers and respect all free beliefs here, but I kind of think there's an evilness out there in it. That evilness wants to take away something that's good, that's pushing that kindness and that free, wants to take us out. So it is a real attack that happens to us. And we hear the message a lot is love. And I think that's one action we can take to tap into that love to kick out that evil.
Yeah, you can't combat, you're not going to put out a fire with more fire.
Yeah.
You have to come at a fire with water. And I think same thing is if somebody's being a dick or whatever to you, to flip it and do the same thing to them, that's just going to create more of a situation.
Wow, I'd like to hear more more about Lawson. I know that she's been into some acting too, and I think you had mentioned on the Bell cast that you had started to get into some acting as well. Is that right? Right on.
Yeah, so Lawson's my girlfriend. She was my jiu-jitsu student for a couple of years actually before we started dating, and the way we started dating was kind of funny. It just basically like, I got my black belt and I decided I wanted to do WWE and I wanted to pursue a better life for myself and my friends, which means that I have to do things that's going to put me in the eye of millions and millions of people, and acting is obviously a huge thing that does that if you succeed at it. And I talked about that to her, and she immediately offered to like just do like acting lessons with me, and I took her up on it right away. And I didn't really think anything of it at the time, but like we did the acting lesson and it went well, and then like we did another one, and then I, despite my ridiculous history of being friend zoned, I took one last final risk of asking a girl to go to breakfast, and she accepted. So that was getting over the first step, and then the second step was like asking her to actually physically go on a date with me. And I was like, I'm fucking testing my luck here. I'm already like 1 for 1. I shouldn't push it too much farther. And I'm sitting there with like the message, like, yeah, we should go on a date sometime. And I'm like sitting there like with my phone, just like, I can't do it. And then like my friend like Fred and like Irvin, they're like taking my thumb, like, no, I can't. And then they like force my thumb down to send. They're like, we sent. I'm like, oh, I can't. Tell me what she says. I can't. And then she obviously accepted, thankfully, and the rest was basically history. She was coming out of a bad relationship at the time, and so was I, and it grew to like kind of learning that we're very well put together, and we're meant for each other, and we're very happy together. And what I was lacking at the time between nutrition or perspectives on life, or like even like mobility, my girlfriend's like one of the most flexible people I know. She filled in a lot of voids that I needed from somebody, and vice versa, which is why we complement each other so well. And I'm very grateful for her in that respect. And I'm grateful that TNT even brought us together, and now we're moving to Austin together with Matt and everything. So that's cool. She's just done a lot to help me and support me through certain things, as any good girlfriend or wife should. And I'm grateful to have found that for myself, for sure.
Yeah, that's huge. It's huge to have somebody that like supports you in that, because a lot of, you hear it all the time with the athletes and stuff. They don't truly understand what we're trying to do here, and they can't even wrap their head around it. So it's like, what the hell? Practice again, or I'm tired. And like, I'm so thankful for my girlfriend. She'll sit in this gym for 2-3 hours in video, and she loves it.
That's so cool.
Now she's watching the UFC fights, and I'm like,
really?
Those fights are garbage. I'm not watching those. And she's like, I can't miss it. And I'm like, so it's cool to have somebody that's almost like a tag team partner.
Yes. And to that point, I'm sure you've experienced it, but I've also experienced like the opposite of that, of the person it's not even their fault per se, it's just not meant to be, but they don't have the perspective on your schedule or the things that you need to sacrifice in order to get to where you're at, and then in result there's turmoil created within the relationship of the two. And I've never actually had Lawson once complain about my training schedule, complain about me training 3 times a day, complaining about me training till 1 a.m., not coming to see her, and like, maybe having one date night a week, and all these different things that honestly from my past and from what I know from other people, like most girls just would not put up with. And that's why for a long time I accepted I'm probably going to be single until I accomplish all this stuff, because for one, it's going to be hard to find somebody that's willing to accept that, but then at the same time too, it's going to be hard to find somebody that's willing to even like actually go through it once you're in it. Because like once you meet somebody that you like, and it's all fun and exciting at first, like, yeah, sure, I'll be a part of that, that's fun, and then you start to get used to it, and and then there's some things that come along that you didn't expect when you first entered it, right? So and to that point, I do my best to obviously be a present boyfriend as much as I can, but there is an understanding, and even in her life too with acting, and she does jiu-jitsu, and she now likes lifting a lot, but there's an understanding on both ends that like, okay, yeah, you want to be this good at this, and you need to sacrifice all these things. So we both understand that like when you're working on goals and we're not together, like we're not gonna take away from that at all.
That's huge. For her to be, like, I always think about, okay, now let's say that we break up, now you're gonna go date somebody normal.
Yeah.
It's like, good luck, because you're used to, like, it's almost like, oh, dude, you're lazy.
Yeah, it would be bad. Yeah, for sure. Exactly. No, that's so true. It would be a big adjustment for sure.
I'm always like, good luck.
Yeah.
I'd really like to hear more about your parents too. I know your dad is a psychologist, and your mom is Filipino, and we both share a connection there. Right. Chef Mamara, the Recharge Center, Filipino. I think one of my favorite cultures, most beautiful cultures. So, is it the Filipino culture kind of played a role in your life, and it's dropping a lot on you, but also your dad is a psychologist. That's such an interesting parental support background to have.
It's a unique combo for sure. Yeah, I was very integrated with the Filipino scene in Arizona when I was younger, because I went to the majority of Filipino parties with my mom, as a kid. Yeah. And
lots of food, right?
Yeah, lots of food. And it's funny because, like, those Filipino ladies, like, they'll be going to like 3 or 4 in the morning dancing and playing mahjong and all these things. And like anybody would come in and think, oh, these people are plastered. But they're not a drip of alcohol in their system. They're just like automatically wired just to like go crazy 100% of the time. Even like into their like 70s and 80s. My grandma's included in this mix, by the way. But
I love it.
Yeah, so the Filipino culture, obviously, being involved in the Filipino community around here has definitely been a part of my life. And then from the other end of things, you got my mom, who's a extreme extrovert, and then my dad, that's an introvert, that's more mentally very intellectual. I would describe him as the smartest guy I know, as far as like what he's accomplished in school and his career. 6 different degrees between doctorates, PhDs, masters, so on and so forth. He was told at a young age that he couldn't be what he wanted to be because of his mental incapabilities. So he worked his ass off to prove that wrong.
Oh, I love that.
And so seeing and hearing about the stories where he overcame certain barriers like that, it was almost like learning that as a kid, and also seeing him like go through these stints of like losing 40, 50 pounds at a time, working out, and just seeing him like work. As a kid, you see that. And as long as your relationship is good with your father, you see that you like accept it as like, oh, this is what you're supposed to do. Yeah. And it just becomes a part of life, the same as like eating and drinking. And so now seeing the different things that my dad did, now entering into my own journey, into my own path of life, I just take the same work ethic that my dad either showed me or he talked about when I was young, and just try to implement it and as best as I can, and hopefully better. Because that's what every son should do, is be better than their father in certain ways. But better, it because of the inspiration that he gave me, or because of the lessons that he taught me growing up. Now, it's not necessarily in school. I graduated ASU, but that's not saying a whole lot. But it is in other aspects of life. At least
ASU's amazing. Graduated from ASU. That's incredible, man.
Well, graduated with a bachelor's degree from ASU. A lot of people have done that. But as far as like what I'm trying to do to stick out and be that one, like I want to take that work ethic and
that makes sense.
and do it for what I want to do. Absolutely.
That's absolutely beautiful. All right, your mom is probably integrated into the scene around this area. Would they ever consider moving out to Austin with you, or they? Yeah, I know they're supportive, but that might be a little hard. They're like, oh no, he's moving away.
We've been in the house since I was 2, and
wow.
and they've gotten to the point, thankfully, to where they see what I'm able to do. They see the impact I have, and they see the people that I've been able to connect with, and they both understand that this is the most sensible next step for me. And I didn't know when this day was going to come for a long time. I've been with my parents for a long, long time, and I've always wanted to be around them to my best capability. But I think we all knew that there was going to be a point where it was going to be time for me to take that step, and my first step out is going to be bigger than most people's. But I'm like prepared for it because of what my parents have done for me, what they've taught me, but also because I've done my groundwork here to support me wherever I go.
Right. You stand on your own 2 feet now. You know like who you are. For me, I left home at 16.
Oh, wow.
I went to a boarding school, so that was like it was tough leaving home at that young. Like,
I bet.
On your own. But being in a boarding school, you kind of have people taking care of you. It's basically like college, getting your hand held. But moving away at that young was tough. But it was much easier than a lot of the kids because of the things that your parents, showed you along the way.
Yeah.
Wowzers. So you're headed out to Austin, and I know one of the polls out there is the B team, the New Wave Jiu-Jitsu. How again did you get connected, and are you planning to get back into the ADCC scene and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell the future, so I can't tell you what opportunities are going to come that's going to take my focus where, but currently the plan and the goal is to obviously pursue jiu-jitsu there. I'd really like to train underneath John Danaher and Gordon and all those guys. I do have a slightly better relationship with them because of the fact that I train with them for a few days out there, but also not that I would say that Gordon Ryan is my friend. Not that he wouldn't be my friend. He's just we're not very close. But I do take credit. I do take credit because I am the person that introduced him to CT Fletcher. Shortly after that, they had CT on a Flow Grappling podcast with Gordon Ryan interviewing, and he said my name and everything. I was at West Coast Trials, and CT came to watch my matches, and then Gordon saw him, and then he creeped over, introduced himself to him. I'm like, yeah, this is Gordon Ryan. He's the best in the world, and then CT and him became friends after that. So he remembers me because of that, and he's always been super supportive and nice to me at the trials that I've seen him at and whatnot, and says hi to me, and he invited me to train with him and everything. And despite his persona online, which is due in large part just how he markets himself. Yeah. A very nice person in person, and doesn't necessarily treat people like they're under him, at least from what I've seen. He invited me to train, came up to me right away and said what's up, and then introduced himself to my girlfriend. Hi, I'm Gordon. Obviously she knows he's Gordon, but he went out of his way to introduce himself as any person should. But yeah, so with that said too, under their tutelage, I would love to continue to pursue ADCC endeavors, and I do think that I would be able to have a decently good shot to be able to qualify, especially if I did the 88 kg class, and getting the weight class is a little bit more respected to my size overall. Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for what's ahead. You've been saying CT Fletcher, a lot of people that might, hopefully we grow, we get this audience going, but our audience, I imagine they might not know who CT Fletcher is. Please look into him. Maybe you can give a quick summary. He's an amazing guy.
Yeah, CT has been around for a long, long time. He did the majority of his competitive lifting in the 90s, early 2000s. He set, world bench press records, world strict curl records and everything. But he became really famous when YouTube started exploding, and then he just came out as this super hardcore, no fucks given, type of weightlifter, just super old school, cussing at the weights, talking to himself in the mirror, all these different things. And that's how he grew, a audience of a couple million subscribers or followers and everything. And I met him a few years back at one of the lifting events that he puts on, and he's the reason why I became such good friends with Goldberg. And CT is a very special person to me because I give him credit for being the person to even give me the opportunity to become friends with my childhood hero. So CT Fletcher, you might see his videos wow, this guy's hardcore, or this guy's might be kind of an asshole or whatever, just because of how he talks or whatnot. But he's the person that's even better off camera than he is, and very grateful, very humble. He's gone through his fair share of health issues too. Yep. And just somebody that's very willing to help and give his time to the people that are truly there to support him and not take advantage.
He's been a huge inspiration to me and of what he's overcome in his life. And I wonder if it was that event that you were at, was that where you were doing the curl?
That's one of them, yeah. And then there's the Iron Wars event that he puts on too, which is just kind of like a open invite type of everybody comes to lift super heavy and type of, yeah. But I've done quite a few of CT's events, really just to continue to support him and show him that I appreciate everything he's done for me.
That was a strict curl competition, right? How much did you end up curling strict?
That one I did 180. Oh, I guess that's the best I've done with in competition. I've done 190 in training at my current body weight, and then when I was a little bit bigger, I hit 200 in training. But yeah,
did they make you? I can't remember. Do you have to be with your back against the wall? I know they're pretty strict curl. They're strict.
Yeah, head, shoulders, and butt against the wall, and then your legs are locked out, and then you start with your arms fully locked at the bottom.
180 pounds, Levi. What do you think?
I don't know.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, that's wild. And your deadlift, I was looking at I think it was USPA numbers.
Oh yeah.
North of 700 deadlift.
Yeah, the last time I competed was 4 years ago under Tim's one of the first drug tested meet in Arizona that Tim put on. I did, and then that was the last one I did 4 years ago or something now, and it was like it's 672 squat, a 410 bench, and then a 705 deadlift or something like that. Wow. Yeah.
I trained at probably, this is maybe my freshman year in high school, pretty heavy, like West Virginia powerlifting. They had Brian Siders. I don't know if you know him. He was like in this magazine, top 10 strongest guys to walk the planet. And then Alan Beria was world record bench press guy.
Nice. Okay.
He was going through chemo. He had cancer as well. He was going through chemotherapy and hit I think it was 705 for a triple.
Damn.
On bench.
Yeah.
Obviously he's, sauced up to the gills, but
was it geared lifting?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but so I know a little bit of that whole culture. It's kind of wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're doing a podcast here in a kind of a complex. Logan Paul had walked in here a couple weeks ago.
Did he really?
Yeah, he said it. In his first, he was on the Timbo Sugar Show. We got Soul Fighters over here, Tim Welch and Sugar Sean, and they do their podcast over there. So Logan Paul came into the front of the building, and one of the first things they said on their podcast is, he's like, what the heck is Sugar Sean doing in this place? It looks like it's an enchanted haunted house over here. So we're in this complex, but to us, it's kind of and they kind of did a good response to it, saying, hey, we're not going to train in all the fancy bells and whistles. We're going to get in here and be where we got to go, where we got to train. We're gonna do it. And we've kind of developed this really beautiful community where we have Die Hard, who is you were involved with before, and then we've got Soul Fighters Peoria. And I know you kind of pay attention, you kind of follow. I think you're a Sugar fan, right? Sugar Sean fan.
I've never met him before. I hope I do before I move for sure. Mm-hmm. But I'm a big fan of everything he's accomplished, especially like being here in Arizona and stuff like that. A very good representation of the community.
Yeah, you might wrestle Logan Paul too. We should have did a promo.
That'd be cool.
Logan
Paul. That'd been funny.
Get you right into the WWE.
That's crazy. He was here. Yeah. I was 18 or whatever walking these halls, and now all the big celebs are coming through.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
Who else has been through here? They've had some guys on there.
Did Nell come in here?
I'm sure
they did. Yeah,
they got to bring Bradley Martin in here. I'm wearing his hat.
Oh, wait. I saw you were just over at Zoo.
Yeah, I checked out his gym out there. It's pretty nice.
I'm a huge fan of it. I like his whole mindset too. Mm-hmm. It seems like he's pretty dialed in on
it. For sure.
Especially from a business aspect
too. Yeah, he has that shit dialed in, no doubt. Yeah. No doubt.
He's not doing his own podcast, right? He's just kind of in with the Nelk sometimes on
He has the Raw Talk, it's called. It's a really good podcast too, like where he gets in, he kind of asks questions that are like the people don't really want to talk about, but he's like, this is Raw Talk. We're gonna get to it here, So I like it.
Nice. What was your takes from meeting with him?
Oh, I never actually. Well, I take that back. I did meet him one time, but I didn't meet him at the gym. I just drove down there with my girlfriend to check it out and everything.
Nice.
But the first,
he needs to get you on his podcast.
I'd love to.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Hey, Mr. Bradley, let's get this going, man.
Send it to everybody. Yeah, I met him the first Iron Wars I did at CT's. He was there. He had one of his lifters there, and he watched me pull 700 conventional for the first time. And I did a video on my Instagram where I'm about to lift it, and then Bradley Martin's in the background, so zoomed in on his face. But he was cool. I introduced myself to him afterwards. I got a picture with him. I know that's somewhere on there. But yeah, he came off like a nice guy to me at first. I know he's with Nelk and everything, and Nelk's hanging out with
Sean.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if he walks through here one day.
Do you have somebody doing your social media, like your videography and things like that?
No, I mean, not outside of my friends, recording on my phone or on a camera when we need it. Yeah.
It seems to be hard to find. I know that Sugar's he's gone through that too, of finding somebody who's willing to just kind of follow you around. That's a tougher job than it might seem. And I know those guys have gotten there. I see you've made some awesome videos. One comes to mind I was going to ask you about is you've had a few viral videos, and I think one, you were squatting and the weight fell.
Oh yeah, when I dropped that one. Yeah, that was at the Olympia in 2016, my first pro meet that I did. And I was doing geared lifting at the time, and I went for what was going to be the world record for that age group, and then it was 804. And honestly, based upon how the last lift went, I knew I didn't have it. But then Tim told me to go for it. Told me to go for it because he was handling me that day. Tim Sparks, the Die Hard Gym.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, let's do it, Tim. And then I go down with it. And then as soon as I come up, I came out of position forward, and I had to dump it. So next thing you know, 800 pounds was clanking me in the back of the head.
Oh my
And I thought, the seconds before I hit, I definitely thought I was going to either die or definitely get knocked out. But neither happened. And I was able to continue on the rest of the meet. But that was definitely one of the crazier experiences of my life so far, for sure.
I've seen a guy I actually competed in a powerlifting thing when I was in 8th grade.
Oh, okay.
And there was a cop, big jack cop, and he went down on a squat and his quad tore, and it just and you just saw a butt go, and I'm like, oh man.
Yeah, no,
and then I had to squat after that. I'm
really?
like, I don't think I want to squat anymore.
Our pod is Untapped, and a theme of our podcast is when you go into that untapped place, the place you've never been before, the place where you just kind of described where it's a life and death scenario. What kinds of things can somebody take away when you're in that kind of situation? You know, when you go into the Untapped, what advice do you give, or what do you do?
Well, that given scenario is like, all right, well, I didn't die, so I'm probably going to have to continue to go, right? Which is like a pretty simple answer, but let's break it down further. It's like, okay, you didn't die, so you have to keep going. So, I mean, without putting too much thought or analysis into it, that might be a decent takeaway where if ever encountered with said scenario, you know, your instincts will inevitably take over. Your instincts can be prepared through training and different things, but at the end of the day, if you didn't die, if it wasn't your day to die, then you come out of it and you keep going because you have no other choice.
I think about that in like jiu-jitsu and stuff, and I get a lot of slack about doing it with the baseball stuff, and I always tell people, okay, if I can stay calm, I got this big guy on my neck, and he's trying to kill me. Essentially, you're trying to kill me. Like if I don't tap and you're a dick and you wanted to kill me, you could kill me. Yeah. And so if I can stay calm in that situation, now I have bases loaded, 1 out, the game's on the line, and I'm in. It's nothing. At least somebody's not trying to kill me, because Jimmy House 3 days before is on my neck. So this guy trying to hit a home run is it's not a big deal to me.
That's crazy to think that he thinks about it that way, because I would be like shitting bricks if I was like in the other. Then again, I'm not a pitcher, but yeah.
I always hear the fighters say like, oh dude, if I got hit by a ball, that would be miserable. And then the baseball players like, dude, they're terrified of a punch. So it's cool to interesting to be like, okay, the fighters that are crazy and they get kicked in the face and all, they're not scared of that, but they're scared of this little ball. Yeah. And then the people that aren't scared of the ball, they're like a flick in the nose, and they're like, oh man, you know, it's just interesting to see the two different worlds.
Yeah, perception and reality. Right. Yeah.
And then like the big fish, like these superstars in baseball, then I'll go talk to Sean, and he's like, I don't know who the hell that is. Right. And vice versa. Sean's a little bit bigger now, where the guys, they're starting to, because I was a fan of Sean like 3-4 years ago, and I used to get a lot of shit like, what the hell, you're hanging out with this guy, this, what, and ever. And I'm like, well, the trajectory of this guy is going that way, so I'm gonna take what I can from him. Just like anybody's that life is going this way, maybe I don't follow everything that they do, but there's one or two things that I can pull from them. And everybody was giving me shit, and now it's like, oh, you're friends with Sean. I'm like, well, you same people were giving me shit saying I was super fan, this, that, and the other a couple of years ago, and now that he's having all this success, you're like, hey, can you hook me up? Can you?
Yeah, that's how it goes, right? Yeah. But yeah, and to that regard, you take somebody like Sean O'Malley, and regardless of what you think about his personality or whatever he does, you don't get into his position without doing something right.
Right, exactly.
Multiple things, probably hundreds of things right. You know, there's no, especially with like things like that, you know, combat sports or athletics in general, you know, there's very little luck that actually takes place with it. You know, a connection can always help. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you don't have the work to like fulfill a connection, that's never gonna come about. So yeah, obviously he's somebody to really take away from, and it's awesome that he's like literally right there for you guys. You know, that's pretty rare in itself, because you'd expect somebody of his caliber, like they mentioned, to be training, you know, at whatever luxury place with all these great people and everything. And that's why I think what he's doing training down here is great for the sport of Arizona in general. And I don't know exactly where all he trains. I have a good idea, but you know, like generally people think about MMA in Arizona, you got like Fight Ready and stuff like that. They've generally dominated more recently, and now shedding light to like, oh, you can go to like your actual, you know, just regular jiu-jitsu school, train there, like and be at that level. So you know, it's cool. It shows that you don't necessarily always have to be training with the Patriots to win a Super Bowl, I guess you could say.
True. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I thought about that. Like, okay, I train all over the place, but getting your black belt from somebody like Tim, if Sean ends up being like McGregor,
right,
and you have your black belt from McGregor's coach,
yeah.
now you pop up a gym somewhere,
yeah.
everybody's going to
yeah.
be in there.
Yeah,
so just
exactly.
benefiting from being around those type of people is, I think you're stupid if you don't.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I'm noticing you're getting some cauliflower here, Levi. How are you going to report to spring training?
Yeah, a little bit. I trained with Nico Price. I don't know if you know him, out of Florida.
Okay,
I'm fortunate because I train here with Sean, and then I live with Jakar Close and Courtney Casey, both in the UFC.
Wow.
And then I went and trained with Nico. So I'm like super blessed that I've been around all these high level.
That's
where
amazing.
It's like I started my jiu-jitsu journey with the top of the top, I felt like. So. And I've used I think maybe it wouldn't have been as easy without the baseball stuff, because going into Nico's gym, there's a little bit more respect because I'm a professional athlete. So I feel like they let me in a little bit easier.
But to that point, it's almost as it should be, because it's not like you're just walking in some rando off the street and just getting respect for no reason. The work that you put in to get to a professional level of baseball has earned you the right to have respect from anybody that you walk across, and that's something that you should have, in my opinion. There's certain aspects for myself. I'm not necessarily a bodybuilder or deep within the community, but there is a certain amount of respect that people have for me, acknowledging what I've done to get to where I'm at, and that's why you deserve that, man. Anywhere you go, you deserve special treatment per se, because you've earned that.
I feel like if you walk into a normal gym, maybe nobody knows who you are. But now you pull 700 one time. Yeah, everybody in that gym respects you
for sure. You know what's funny though is that usually EOSs and stuff, everybody stops and look. I went to a couple gyms in Scottsdale where the dynamic, without trash talking, the dynamic out there is different amongst I don't know, more let's just call it dressy than what I am.
Yeah.
I could deadlift 700 and rep it out in front of a group of girls working out, and not a single one, because I have video proof, will bat an eye. Yeah, not a single one. But you go to EOS over here and everything, especially during peak hours, and then you sneeze extra loud before you go to lift the weight, and everyone's looking and stuff that. It makes for a great video. But yeah, it's interesting because most gyms, yes, and then there's a select few where you're there for your booty workout, and then if the guy's deadlifting 700, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So
Scottsdale's a different world.
It is.
I lived in Scottsdale for probably my first 4 years with the Diamondbacks. But it was almost, you get kind of trapped in that shit, everybody here's got a BMW or a Range Rover or a Bentley, and so you kind of get sucked into that all these things matter, and then they obviously don't. So I like being kind of on the outskirts where it's I'm not sucked into that culture of the new shiny toy is the thing that matters.
Yeah, I agree, man.
You were talking about, it kind of touched on character, how you are when nobody's watching you, and we've got Dana Cox here, who is our production guy, is behind the camera today. He's not. I know he's not going to want to pop on, but I always want to get him on here. But he. So it was I think it was 4 years back or so, somewhere around there, when you first saw Jimmy. He was going into an EOS, right?
Oh, really? Thank you.
Yeah, exactly what you said. Though, you sneezed and everything.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I remember seeing you. It was the one off 59 from 101.
Oh, cool.
And I found your Instagram. Just look up the location. Who are some of these guys?
I've done that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and man, you were putting up huge weight.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I think you were saying too that he would see you come in the morning, early in the morning for several hours, and at night for several hours, and it kind of goes into what you've been talking or showing as example, leading by example, and Levi too, is it doesn't come by luck to get to this level that you're at. You think about science and technology, how all the great minds came together, and all the work and hours of work and studying that went into producing Apple and Microsoft and the internet. And I believe now we're looking at sports and exercise science and everything that's related to that. You're looking at the top in history right now, Jimmy House, Levi Kelly. And to be able to do that, I think people they kind of know how this guy probably works hard. I don't think they quite, a lot of people, myself included, probably don't even know the amount of work that takes. So maybe you could touch on what does your daily schedule look like, and how do you manage that? Do you plan it and that kind of stuff?
I'm notoriously good at not planning, like as far as like writing things down and being organized in that sense. I just am able, for whatever reason, to cram it all in my head and not forget what I need to do, like day to day to day to day.
Yeah.
And, thankful, it's a good thing to be able to have trouble not jam packing my schedule each and every day, because somebody needs me somewhere, I need to do something somewhere. Like it's a good problem to have. Absolutely. With that said, especially now going to move to Austin, where I'm going to be around hundreds of people that are huge connections, people that I want to strive to be like in some capacity. I want to be the best version of myself possible, which is always the goal, but like even more so recently, to where like I want to bring the best version of Jimmy House to Austin, Texas, so making sure that I'm getting the necessarily like 2.5 hours of weight training in. Not necessarily to say that 2.5 hours of weight training a day is optimal, but to like do and accomplish certain things and movements that I want to do to impress people, then like for me it is. And then you got the jiu-jitsu, so rolling hard for, at least an hour a day with a high-level black belt and like all these different things. Like all of that is, to me, is necessary. And then you take into account the business side of things. So whether that's clients that I have or people that I'm working with online or building the online business to start really getting that going in Austin, there's always like a second of the day in my head where if I'm not doing something productive, like I'm behind essentially. And I always honestly feel like I'm behind, to be honest, and maybe that's like a good thing to have, because it kind of like forces you to kind of chase whatever you feel like is out there for yourself. But for me, there's generally at least like 2 or 3 training sessions a day, and in years past it can be like anywhere from 2 to 4 on a given day, but like now I have a much better balance between like my personal life to the business life to the jiu-jitsu life to the lifting life, and maximizing the hour or 2 that I'm doing each given thing. And then that's what's allowed me, I think, to make a lot of progress in the last few months, more than I have in the last couple of years, to be honest. But yeah, and I don't know if that answers your question, but I think in short, it just basically for myself, acknowledging that if you want to do certain things, to his point earlier, there's no one that's going to make you do it but yourself. Like you have to make the schedule for yourself. You have to make the extra time for yourself. You can't like be like, oh, but that's a 30-minute drive and then there's only an hour slot, and then like this, and like if you just like let one of those little excuses come in, then the entire day is full of excuses and then you just can't make any progress. So I like to almost think of myself running on autopilot for most of the day and not even let myself touch a chair or touch a bed until absolutely necessary, because then like all that momentum stops and I won't feel like getting up again. But that's kind of how I operate, and I've gotten kind of comfortable with it, or not comfortable is a bad term, but used to it at least. Yeah.
I feel like that's so powerful, because I hear a lot of advice over the times when I was getting into battling. Okay, I got to start to take the best, healthiest approach to battle this life and death stuff, the chemo and the cancer. So I'm going to make myself get up at a certain time. I'm going to fall into this really tight regimen. But then it didn't work, because I would get sick all of a sudden. Someone would throw me off of that schedule. And then I realized I need to be adaptable. There's, it's kind of an art to it. There's a science behind what a lot of the things that you're tapping into that's making you successful. But I think there's an art to, we got to be able to flow with things. And I see that as a good prep for you on a worldwide level. When you may be throwing into things in the WWE, who knows what that day is going to like, and being back with under Donahar and things like that. That's incredible. I'm curious now, I got a vision of you and it's kind of seeing what it might look like. Where do you see Jimmy House in 2025?
So that's about 2 years after January. I see myself already accomplishing the goal of creating the lives that I said I would create for my friends in whatever capacity that is. Now, to me, like WWE, that's the big goal. That will happen either tomorrow or 5 years from now. I don't know when it will. I just know it will. There's a lot of things that will be accomplished in the meantime, and I don't know if necessarily manifesting one specific thing is the right thing to do in this given moment, because I'm honestly open and ready for anything that can come my way. And I think as time passes, I'll get a little bit more specific as to what that will be. But to answer your question, in about 2 years, I do see myself fulfilling my promise to my friends, or at least starting to like a much bigger capacity than what I am now. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think like building off of that, you're like all the work that you do, you're prepared for whatever happens. What if the WWE calls tomorrow? You're ready. If they call in 2 years, you're ready. If they call in 5 years, you're ready. Or whatever comes up, you've put in the work to be prepared. When the phone rings, Jimmy House is ready to roll.
Thank you.
And I think from a business looking at like you as an investment, that's valuable. It's like, this dude we know we can call on this guy and he's going to be ready because he's taking care of himself. He's practicing, he's living this lifestyle that we can depend on. It's not like you're not a hobbyist in any of these aspects, you know?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think there's that answer right there was so powerful because your answer went right to your family community. And that should tell all of us how important that is. Those people that you have around your family community, who's with you. Matt Olson and Logan Knott, I've gotten to be really close with them, who are good friends with you. The way that they talk about you when you're not around is beautiful. Those are the kind of people you want as your family community.
Thank you.
That's an amazing answer.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. It's like selfless too.
Thank you.
Like your main goal is not about you.
No.
Which is why it's rare that's not the case, you know.
I appreciate that, and honestly, that reason alone is the reason why I'm so confident and saying will versus when or if, you know, saying will and when versus if and maybe, because of that fact. Because like in my heart, I know that I'm doing this genuinely for the good of myself, but I know by creating good for myself, it's going to create good for my inner circle, obviously, and then the goal would be millions of people at some point. I was impacted by Goldberg growing up, and that kid, or that man had so many kids.
Goldberg.
Yes, his impact on millions of kids, much like myself, right here, was indescribable. And if everybody in the world had told how they were impacted by Goldberg as a kid, he was literally, you know, you get out of the comic book era a little bit where kids idolize, you know, Superman and the comic books and stuff like my dad, and then you go into pro wrestling and like Goldberg fit the mold of being an actual superhero, and you're a kid and you believe it, and then so acknowledging like how certain things have come up in my life and things coming full circle, acknowledging that there's many more circles to go around in my life. You know, I think I was exposed to Goldberg at such a young age to not only be inspired to do what I'm doing now, but to also like revert to the fact that like by the time I'm dead, like I'm also going to be striving to impact millions of kids as well, which is why more recently, you know, at TNT, I'm getting ready for the move. I've given up all of my adult classes, but I'm very contingent on keeping the kids till the very last day that I'm here, because of the fact that I see this as, for one, my last like task per se, or my last thing to accomplish here in Arizona is to impact as many young kids as possible. And I had a girl the other day, one of my favorite students personally, like she knew I was going to move because I announced that I was making a goal to move in my black belt. But I think, you know, just being young, she didn't necessarily like think the day was coming. And then she found out that it actually was. And she just kind of like broke down into tears. And it was bittersweet in a sense that like I'm not necessarily like enjoy that my student here is bawling her eyes out. But then at the same time, like it's somewhat satisfying to know that I'm having the impact on a kid like that, to know like, yeah, what Goldberg did to me, I'm doing to these kids, and I hope to continue to do that, you know, like there's like no money amount that I could even put on that as to like how happy it makes me, how much I enjoy it. Like, you know, despite how busy my day-to-day schedule is, I will always make time for those kids, and like they're amongst my highest priorities right now, and like definitely my biggest goal to accomplish before I move. And I just hope to be able to carry that on, you know, the rest of my life, which I'm very confident that I will be able to, for sure.
I always think like when you're speaking to, let's say you're speaking to 100 kids, there might be 99 turds in there, but there's one Jimmy House in there that is gonna, now 20 years down the road, is in the same, and it's just a domino effect. Now that person, your role model affected you, so you affected 1 million people, and now it's just dominoes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, to that respect, it's like if I can impact this group of 40, 50 kids, and I accomplish the things that I say that I'm going to accomplish, and they can always refer back to me as the coach that helped them out when they're little, and their lives are affected, or they change their work ethic, or they pursue things like how I have, then that's like 100 times satisfying to me. And then on top of that, past lessons that I might have passed on to them, to their kids, and impact families for generations to come. Like how could you ask for a better life?
Yeah, and I feel like when you're teaching kids, it keeps you accountable too. Mm-hmm. It's like, if I'm not living this, then Joey that's in the class is going to see me on social media doing X, Y, and Z. And
yes,
be like,
100%.
Look at Coach Jimmy. He's out in Scottsdale.
Yeah, right.
Doing whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly where I was going, but
no, I get where you're going. Yeah, like I'd hate
like you're setting an example for the kids, so it makes you be accountable to yourself.
Right. Yeah. Be plastered and run into one of my kids' moms in Old Town or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but. And so I'm gonna bring this up because I expect this podcast to grow and I would like more views to be brought to it. And I think a good point to that is that I hold myself to a very high standard because of the lessons that I learned from my parents as a kid, but also now to that point being in a position to shed lessons onto the youth and impact kids' lives. Myself personally, I've never done any drugs at all, and so when it comes to that discussion on like, oh yeah, steroids and all these different things, like think about it from my perspective, where my goal that I'm manifesting on this live podcast is to impact as many kids and impact my friends as best as I possibly can. And who am I to impact kids if I don't live as clean of a life as I possibly can? Like I never started with it when I was a kid, whether it's pot or meth or performance enhancing drugs. What purpose would serve me doing that now in the future? Like what purpose does that serve if my goal that I'm relaying to you guys is to impact the youth, like what we were talking about? So there's so many comments that get put online and there's so many people that are ignorant, but like my biggest thing is that like if you really get to know me and my purpose on this earth, you'll understand 100% why I live straight edge. I didn't drink alcohol until I was like 21 and a half, and I've only done it like literally a handful of times since. And I'm here to continue to push the fact that me living a drug-free lifestyle, accomplishing the things that I've done, is 100% possible to anybody, regardless of age, regardless of background. It's 100% possible if you put in the work and if you're surrounded by very good people. And that's, of course, an opportunity to clear the air on my name, but it's also an opportunity to shed light to the parents of the kids that give me trust, that yes, you are allowing your kids to trust a good role model, and I will continue to uphold that standard for myself and everybody that falls underneath me. And I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak about this on the podcast.
Wow, and I think amazing. As if I'm a hater, if I can't stand Jimmy House, it's a lot easier for me to say you're on steroids than it is to give you the credit for the hard work. People always talk like the Liver King. Right. We were just talking about this earlier, and whether he's on steroids or not, it doesn't matter. Right. It's about the message he's trying to present. Regardless of if you're on steroids, do I think it's a good thing to do? No, I don't. But the message that he's putting out there is still beneficial. So I lost my train of thought again.
I definitely get what you're saying too, because it's like, people make such a big deal about it, which is why it's worth touching on, right? But then at the same time, like if you look at somebody like him, if let's say it's dead set like he is,
right?
If he's impacting people in a positive way to better themselves, like it's like, okay, well, for him specifically, if he's willing to take the health risk in order to make that impact, then that's technically a good service to the community, because I mean it's not like he's being a competitor and claiming to be drug free, and right. It's like he's not doing anything necessarily morally wrong if he's using that as a way to further expand his outreach, right?
Right.
It's like, people are going to do their own things behind closed doors, and that's totally their call. But if he's finding a way to use it to impact people, then essentially he's doing like one of the main purposes of life I want to do too. So it's all good.
Yeah. I think even me coming up in like sports as a kid, they were all like, oh, he's juicing, he's doing X, Y, and Z, he's got to be juicing. There's no way. And I think that's the mindset, is like, well, there's no way that's possible without cheating, because people aren't willing to put in the work that it's taken 20 years to get to the point where you're at. So it's much easier to wrap your head around, oh yeah, he's on steroids, than it is like all the work you do. Totally. I always say, like, if you see somebody driving a Bentley, it's easier to say, that's sketchy, they must be dealing drugs or something, than it is to say they did it the right way. Yeah,
it doesn't have to be just like steroids or anything like that. It could be anything.
Right.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the how important it is to keep that relationship with the kids going, it just made me think such an important part of when I was a kid and I'm watching Bill Goldberg on WCW, was it?
Yeah.
At the time, he was on TNT on Thursdays. My brother would
Yep.
wait for him, and it was just this huge thing when he'd finally come out to wrestle. We'd be fueling up like, I want to be big like Bill Goldberg. We'd watch him, and he was just so fun. There was a kind of a funny element to it, and there such a thing to look forward and entertain. But as a role model, look up how can I work? I'm going to put in the work. We go to the gym, we'd lift, and we get into that whole element. And I think it's so important, and I just admire it so much, how you're staying with kids. Have the most fun, and to stay around that element and to impact kids. That's something that seems to be lost now. It seems so much of the social media, and I get guilty of getting sucked in it too, is focus on myself all the time, self. But to have a message out there, I think this is huge. It's a forward thinking, it's a futurist, the thought of returning to something that we're all craving in this world. That is to bring messages that are positive and optimistic and healthy to kids out there. And man, I love you, brother. You're epitomizing that whole thing. I mean,
Thank you.
When you were talking about that and you're sharing how you want to be a role model and stuff, I was getting like Holy Spirit goosebumps. I was getting all emotional and stuff. There's something really special there, and I feel like it was amazing what you just shared there.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's humbling to have you say something like that here, and I think to any haters out there, hey, we kind of touched on that or whatever, but I mean, the guy was lifting weights at age 5. I mean,
right.
I mean, come on, the amount of work that he's put in here. Let's focus on that amount of work, and not that, hey, the mold is in our culture is 9 to 5, and nobody wants to give up that 9 to 5. That's a respectable thing. I'm going to go home and sit, and I'm going to eat some fast food, and people don't want to break out of that mold. This guy has been breaking out of that mold since he was 5, so let's focus on that part.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
for
appreciate
sure.
that. Thank you.
Yeah,
And I still feel like I should be bigger. That's the thing. I was like, I don't know what you guys are fucking talking about. Like, I'm 5'9" and 195 pounds on a good day, or 200 pounds or whatever.
Yeah, I always like when people used to say that I'm not big at all, but it was from the stuff I was doing in baseball. I was like, well, there's no way he's got to be.
Yeah.
I always take it as like, well, I'm glad they think that, because if they thought I was eating like shit or doing, then it probably was because I'm not doing well, So I would take it almost as like, yeah, I hope you guys think that because of, I'm putting in this work, so I must be doing something right.
For sure. So I'm gonna take that as a segue. So my girlfriend and I had an argument the other day because she told me that I should take the various like steroid accusations as compliments, and we got in a big argument about it. It's not like a innocent argument per se, but like so yes. On a literal scale, like it is a compliment to have other people think that you are cheating to get to that level. The way I personally see it, I don't see it personally. Like the way my brain works, I guess, my life experiences and the work that I've done, just the way I see it, it's like it is a compliment to be thought of as somebody that needs to take drugs to get to a certain place. However, to me, it's more so like the accusations are literally accusing me of X, Y, and Z, but it's more so an accusation of being dishonest or immoral or in a character or in some cases like literally being a bull-faced liar to my closest friends. That's when it starts to hit a sweet spot for me. For me personally, like, no, I don't take that as like. I had somebody literally message me yesterday. Hey, bro, are you Natty? I'm like, I took a screenshot of my Instagram bio, and I sent it to him. I said, I'm either Natty or bold-faced liar, one of the two. and it's like, dude, it's like, why would I lie? Like, what do I have to gain out of it? And on top of it, of my closest friends that are with me all the time, like, and I'm going out of my way to lie to them, like, how much effort do you think I have to put in to carry this lie on with, like, literally everybody? My girlfriend was talking about the other day because, like, there's people that she knows that, like, is he, like, like, no, like, I've traveled with him and, like, on days on end, weeks, and, like, I've been with him every single second, and, like, his strength stays up and his size stays the same, and he doesn't have anything, like, he doesn't do anything. Like, I'm like, yeah. And then same with my friends, like, you can come to his house and you can literally go through everything. Like, feel free, check my car whenever you want, that type of thing. So yeah, to me, it's a little bit like, sure, I could take it as a physical compliment, but over the years, I've taken as more of like a moral insult. Yeah. And maybe like I'll evolve and grow past and start to see the light into it. But that's like where I've honestly like perceived it per
right,
se.
yeah. Like you're questioning my character.
Yeah.
I get that too.
Because it's not like, so I'm here, I'm Jimmy House, I'm the natural bodybuilder guy, like yada yada yada. So I'm putting that out there. So if you're saying I'm not, now you're calling me a liar. So now that's becomes like a moral thing, like honesty to my friends thing. That's a little bit bigger of a conversation. If it was just me, like, I don't know, just posting lifting videos, not saying if I was or not, and then you're like, you're on steroids or are you on steroids? Like, that's more understandable, and I could take that a little bit more as a compliment for sure.
Right.
That's my specific scenario. Granted, a lot of these conversations and topics I've never actually publicly spoke on, so I'm just riding the horse down this lane. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity, but yeah.
Some of the hate too is it has to be good for social media stuff. Like as for like with Sean, people are buying the pay-per-view because they want to see him knocked out. Same thing as like some of the hate from a numbers standpoint. They're viewing it to say, "Oh, look at this guy. He's 100%."
So and like whether you are on my side of things, where you think it's an insult or you think it's a compliment, like, you can take the hate, and to that point, if you're growing a business or if you're trying to grow your brand awareness, like, the numbers are numbers, exactly what he just said. So like the algorithm doesn't know if the view is talking shit or the view is complimenting you. Like, it'll all just kind of build up. So like, it's very helpful nonetheless. And from a literal standpoint now, how social media works, like, the view of the troll that's talking shit on your feed is literally in a lot of cases getting you paid. So it's
taking care of your kids.
It is good in that respect for sure. Absolutely.
Wow, that's amazing. I think what you're saying too, I think it's important to make a statement. I think that's such a difficult thing to have to deal with, and I think it takes a lot of courage because, hey, we believe in your brand. You're building a brand that's going to impact. It's already impacting people worldwide. You're going to be ahead. You've positioned yourself to impact the world on a level never been done before, possibly. So by that, it's you got to, try to, hey, what it is, and you're still going to roll, and I think good's going to prevail at the end. But I think it's important to kind of protect that brand too a little bit. That why I think a good example is if you see on Mark Bell's Powercast, you got Encina, who's I mean, you look at this guy, and anybody go in there and look at that and see this man. It's some people are born with better genetics. I mean, that's just how it is. People are born with better genetics. So let's just let everything out. Focus on the hard work. Let's focus on something. Let's get behind somebody here that's trying to do something that's never been done before. That's good for the world. This is a world level impact here. So let's put love in the middle. And man, you got me so fired up today. I can't wait. I don't like to listen to my own voice. Maybe there's a way Dana can set up my voice. I just want to hear all the rest of this. This is good stuff here.
Thanks, brother.
And I know you got a super busy schedule, and can't say enough how much we appreciate that.
Likewise.
I mean, you told me a little bit ago I want to be your first guest, and we had a whole thing go because there was the storm in Florida with Levi, and we didn't expect he was going to be invited into the UFC type of training camp where you get some high level conditioning. I mean, it's not fighting or no fighting was going on at all or nothing. But so thanks for being patient with us there, and thanks for being our first guest live. I mean, I can't believe, I could not dream of or think of a better thing, and I'm so fired up right now as we hit this spot in our cancer treatment. Just a quick update, as we had surprisingly about 10 days ago, we had pretty big progression of disease, but we're starting a new trial at the Mayo Clinic tomorrow that I'm popping into, and it's kind of like you just don't know in life what to expect, so it's just best to just keep training as hard as you can, learn lessons from what Jimmy's doing right here. I'm taking notes from you right now on how how important it is, that community you've built around you, how you've stayed tapped into the childlike, connecting with kids and having fun with the whole thing as you move ahead and putting love at the center of it all. And I just look forward to growing together with you, man. I appreciate consider us part of How Strong. I know it's been like a year or less, but man, I feel like I've known you a long time, and I think we both do. And I can't wait for what's next, brother. I appreciate you got me as family for life, man.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's inspiring too. Just like you're 26, right? So for somebody to have this mindset and kind of already squared away at 26 and be able to, like when I went to your class, to be able to talk and stand in front of a bunch of people, and I mean, that's a skill in itself. Thanks, so it's inspiring to see it. At 26 years old, you're already in the spot, I think the future is definitely bright.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And again, a shout out to TNT's Coach Scott for allowing me to be in that position to practice that skill, because I would say, like historically, that's the skill that like I've always wanted to be good at, but being an only child growing up and having some insecurities and not necessarily wanting to be judged a lot, like this public speaking was maybe not as hard as it was for some people, but definitely a skill that I had to continue to progress. And I always make it a goal whenever I'm on a podcast, like this is going to be the best podcast that I have done to date. Mm-hmm. With that said, I think it is the best podcast I've done to date, is even above Mark Bell and everybody like that. Oh, not necessarily because that was bad, but just because like I've been able to continue to increase my skills in public speaking, and also one thing, and I'll even go back to that. And SEMA, one of the biggest takeaways that he gave me, he said it was a great podcast. That's why we went on for basically 2 hours. But he told me to be like more of myself, and to me, what that means is like, I'm still gonna be humble. I'm still gonna talk about the things I like to do. I'm still gonna talk about my talents, but at the same time, I'm also gonna go off a little bit and maybe cuss a little bit. And then also at the same time, I might talk about the shit that pisses me off that needs to be shed light on, because let's say there is somebody out there that wants to pursue something like me, but they don't want to because they don't want to be accused of X, Y, and Z. They don't want to be put in that spotlight. Well, I'm here to tell that person watching, if it's 1 or 20 or 100, that it is possible, it's okay. And if you approach it with this type of mindset, you'll be able to overcome like whatever comes your way. So I took that lesson from NSEMA of just being even more of my authentic self. And I'm continuously trying to practice that. So that's where it is not me or you that has to thank me. It's me that has to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to talk and be myself amongst people that I respect and then can relate to. So I appreciate that a lot. Sometimes it's hard to get on podcasts and be your true self with somebody you just met.
Right. Yeah.
But with you guys, like I feel very, very comfortable, and you guys led the whole thing super, super great. So again, thank you for the opportunity. And I honestly completely forgot what you said to make me go on this tangent, but like just thank you.
Perfect.
Both. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, this public speaking. But yes, so yeah, I'm very grateful that, I've had hundreds of hours of experience that you've been practicing that skill to get to this point. Absolutely.
For me, starting the podcast, that was like one of the reasons why I was so hell-bent on starting it, was when the camera's on and it says now it's time to, I'm like, oh shit, I'm not great at it either. Mm-hmm. So this is our 6th episode, 5th or 6th.
Yeah, 6, yeah.
And just the progression in those is like, shit, this, regardless of if it booms or not, I need to keep doing it because it's making me a better speaker.
My wrestling coach, when I first started working with him, he said one of the things that actually wrestlers do to increase their like promo cutting, like their ability to talk on camera and stuff, is specifically like podcasts, because it's like a quick, easy way to get experience in front of the camera and show a little bit of personality and stuff like that. So I think it's getting good at public speaking now in today's generation is 10 times easier than it ever was before. And one other thing that I'll say to that is that just like there's different forms of strength and intelligence and jujitsu, like there's also different forms of public speaking. Like I've found that public speaking in front of a camera amongst a group of people has gotten very easy. But when I did an interview with Barbell Brigade, where it was like literally their camera looking at me, that's when I started to get a little bit in my head.
Yeah.
If it's my YouTube channel, I'm talking to the camera, like not as much, but like I'm like, oh, this is like a camera that holds like thousands of subscribers behind it. Like you better not.
Yeah.
So like that's like a skill that myself I want to try to get better at too. That speaking in front of people, that's something that I'm better at. But there's like aspects of public speaking that you get into. Like it's not all the same at the end of the day. So it's good to just seek out any opportunity to talk.
I'm the same. I'm actually in a college class right now, public speaking, and when I'm doing that, I'm so nervous. Like I can sit on here all day and talk, and when if I'm talking to 40,000 people, it's much easier for me. But when it's super personal and it's like, okay, I have to look right here, that's when I freak out.
Yeah.
And it's crazy the difference. That's what I told my parents, is like, I'll struggle in front of you guys more because there's a personal thing there, where if it's 40,000 random people, I don't care.
Really? Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, so it's different, like psychology of that is kind of interesting.
Totally.
I just love this movement of the podcast. It's just as people are still kind of wrapping their minds around what this is exactly. I just got into it when I'd be in the hospital or sick or times are tough, and I just put it into my ear. I put it on the wireless speakers, and I'd hear him, Cena, talk about jiu-jitsu. It's one of the reasons that I signed up with jiu-jitsu. I connected with Andrew from the Bell podcast. He did this thing Shred-A-Geddon that was so beautiful, and they had even mentioned me once on that podcast, and one thing led to another, and Mark Bell's mom ended up connecting with Ara, my wife, and this has been just burning on me. I had to just bring this up. And so she sadly, shockingly passed. That's Mark Bell's mom about a year and a half ago or so, unexpected. And she was a person who was a prayer warrior. And again, we respect all free, kind, peaceful beliefs or whatever. But she was called to wake up every night from about 11 at night until 2 in the morning and just pray, just pour prayer into her kids, anybody that they would be in touch with, and had just been such a big support to Ara and I. So I always wonder something there, like where is I don't know where I'm curious to know we love all beliefs, but you believe there's a higher power out there kind of giving us direction, or that might have maybe our prayers led to this whole thing.
I do, because of the fact of the different things that have happened in my life. I'm never gonna say that I'm just lucky or that's a coincidence, right? I like the things that have happened in my life that I consider to be good are so specific to things that I wanted or dreamt of as a kid, or things that I have specifically like set eyes on, to where sure, like I could work and get to a point to where like I'm good at jiu-jitsu, and then some attention starts to happen. But like as far as like just jumping ship here and just going straight to my childhood hero at the age of like 23 and having him pay for my SmackDown tickets and then give me a hug on the side of the ring while the whole stadium's watching, and like literally fulfilling a dream like that shit. Who am I to say that that's not assisted or guided by somebody bigger than me, right? So to that point, yeah, I am actually a believer. And with that said, like I hope whatever that is, whatever you believe, that continues to guide me in the proper direction, because again, as we talked about, I'm prepared to take what my life purpose is and continue to work and then fulfill and seek that out and continue just to impact other people. And I felt that once I've like actually put my guard down and acknowledge like, I do a lot for sure, but I don't have to like sit here and pretend I do it all by myself. I have many people helping me. And with that said, those people couldn't even help me get something like Goldberg or like these different opportunities to happen, or like even like put these thoughts into my head to where these dreams are even possible. And so with that said, there is probably something or someone bigger than I am helping me get to where I need to go in life. Absolutely.
That's powerful. I always think about like with my surgery and stuff, it's like, okay, if the surgery, everybody's like, why are you not, down? Like, do you not care? And I'm like, this is taking me in a direction that like now I'm so thankful for, where if I would have achieved these X, Y, and Z if I didn't have the surgery, but I wouldn't be the person I am today. Yeah. And I'm thankful for, whoever you believe. For me, it's God, that he kind of took the wheel and steered me in this direction when I was like pressing so hard. I'm going to get to the big leagues right now. I need to be in the big leagues. Like, I would write like, I'm going to be in the big leagues by May. Well, okay, that goal didn't happen because of the surgery and whatever else, but I wouldn't be the person I am today without that. And I'm so thankful that, he put me down this path to create the person I am today, which essentially I'm, proud of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I will always say, I say this on many podcasts, everything in life happens for a reason. And whether you find out what that reason is in the moment or 10 years down the line, you'll always find what the reason is, and it's probably something positive. To that point, it's like we could sit here and like say like, oh, I have certain regrets in life, but I don't. Now I'm at the point where I don't actually understand how anyone could have actually any regrets in life, because to his point, it really is all accumulative to what your story is now and what it's going to become. So if your purpose wasn't to be a pro baseball player by May, and it ends up being a pro baseball Hall of Famer because of it, because you had that extra to do all the things that you did in that time, because you were given that extra time, you were blessed with that extra time, then obviously that was the reason for sure. And whatever that reason is for him or me or you or whatever, so that's a big takeaway from that. That's a very good point to make on
I think when negative things happen, like people that don't have faith, it's much harder to deal with, because you're kind of just like, oh, I got screwed, or this happened, and bad luck or whatever, or genetics, this whatever. It always an excuse, where people that's like, okay, this wasn't supposed to happen right now. Maybe it's going to happen in 10 years. Maybe it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
But I have faith that if it never happens, it wasn't supposed to.
Right.
And I think
And
for
you'll
me,
be
that's
okay.
a relief.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a relief.
Right. If it's meant to happen, great. If it's not, that's okay. But at the end of the day, like, have faith at the very least that you'll be okay. Like, you'll
Right.
be able to adjust. You'll be able to have options, like all these different things. Like, I know if every single goal that I've ever set for myself doesn't work out, I'm always going to be okay because I'm always going to have this. Arizona will always be my home base, you know?
Right.
And I'll always be able to have something here. But I'm trying to now pursue greater to do good for Arizona and everybody surrounding. So that's why I'm taking a leap of faith. But it's not even like a risk per se, because the leap of faith is, again, backed by faith in the sense that, like, I'm faithful that everything that I've done is purposely leading up to this point. And then wherever my life goes from there is kind of, it's in my control, but in essence also out of my hands.
Yeah.
It's in my control in a sense that I control the work that I put in to get to a certain place, but at the end of the day, I have no control over the outcomes that are out of my control. And that's just something you got to accept. And then with that too, there's a lot less stress. There's a lot less negative feelings towards things, resentment, all these different things. And I'm not perfect. I'm sure none of us are at it. But at least if you start to kind of like teach yourself this as a lesson to implement mentally, it starts to become more and more of a reality over time.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Man, I think you exemplify, I pushed the limits into the untapped. I didn't die, so let's keep going.
Exactly.
That's that quote you have.
didn't
That
die.
is so much power right there. That's so beautiful. I'm going to be thinking that all week.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
That's good. I think I just saw Matt Scrogan
Oh, did you
walk
really?
by.
Hell yeah.
There's a top G right there.
Yeah,
That's a guy
yeah.
you go
Good
back
friend of
to
mine.
from Die Hard.
Yeah.
You guys are both under Dawson, right?
Oh, no.
Is
He's
he?
under a guy named Joe Sullivan in Las Vegas.
Oh,
But
okay.
Dawson and Matt know each other because both speak very highly of them in regards to their knowledge and their coaching abilities and also their athletic performance as a powerlifter and stuff. So
I know that I'll talk to him about different things. We'll be like, oh, did you see what Jimmy did on his videos last week? And you see what Dawson did? We're always like, whoa.
thanks, man. Yeah, no, Matt's I always post about him, but like he's probably the top powerlifting coach in Arizona for multiple different reasons, but I'll always like stay true to that for sure.
He's
like
a
Matt
great
Scroggin
guy.
for sure.
Love Matt.
I've referred a lot of people to him. Well, not a lot, but like a handful,
Right
a handful of people that wanted to do powerlifting coaching, and they've all been super happy with their progress with him.
Heck yeah.
Nice.
How we doing on time, Mr. Dane? I think we're coming to our end of this
Like 3
episode
hours?
here.
We're over for sure.
You guys got anything
I'm
else
good
for
to
the
go.
day?
I thought that was great.
No, that was
Yeah,
awesome.
hell yeah.
Man,
I
what
appreciate
a-
you coming on
Thank
too.
you guys so much. I
Man,
appreciate
we
that.
appreciate that. Well, everybody, that's the end of episode 6. I'm going to have to reflect on this one for a while of how amazing this experience was. I hope everybody have felt the same. We kind of entered into the Untapped, I think, in this experience on the podcast, and I just can't wait to see what's going on with Jimmy ahead, and we look forward to maybe some check-ins down the road as we approach the 2025 Jimmy House.
Hell yeah.
Hey, everybody, have a best. Love
Peace.
you.
Thanks, guys.